Ladies and gents, boys and girls, believe it or believe it not, it is almost exactly 1 year since the very first episode of the Primal Podcast went live. And I can't think of a more appropriate way to mark that milestone than to have another whopper chat with a man who has probably been mentioned in every episode since then, and who joined me in that very first show, Mr. Owen Lacey. Owen is a performance consultant, and essentially what he does is combine information and expertise from a huge range of sources and world leaders on health, wellness, performance, nutrition, fertility, strength and conditioning, and much, much more. And he uses this experience and knowledge to help clients achieve their performance goals, whether that's to improve their health span, reach a sporting milestone, develop healthy habits, or whatever the particular aim is for a particular person. As you might have gathered, if you're a regular listener of this podcast, I have a huge admiration for the depth of knowledge that Owen has on topics that I'm particularly passionate about, namely health and performance. And he's a resource that I'm constantly tapping into, along with a huge wedge of the health, wellness and fitness community in Ireland and further afield. On top of this, he's a fairly sound bloke, and he never hesitates to give up a couple of hours to come and share his knowledge with us. In today's episode, we touched on a huge range of subjects that are all fascinating and insightful, but we pay particular attention to the world of hormonal health for both men and women, and how this piece of the puzzle fits into the bigger picture of wellness. I also ask Owen to explain how he looks at creating a robust and resilient human, designed to withstand the test of time and allow us to live an active and fulfilling life, with emphasis on how physical strength and conditioning plays an important role for everyone. This is definitely one to stick on the favourites list and revisit a few times with your notepad. So buckle up and enjoy. Welcome to our shared journey to find the answers to questions about health, wellness, nutrition, performance, life and success, and to craft the most resilient, hardy and happy humans you've ever seen. Welcome to the Primal Podcast. He who shall not be named, Mr. Owen Lacey.
Okay.
Welcome back. I'll explain that comment now in a second.
All right, please do.
But welcome back to the podcast. Thank you very much for joining me.
No problem at all. Happy to be here again for this is my second time.
Second time.
Yeah,
Could you believe it's almost exactly 1 year since you were on this podcast, first episode?
Well, 1 year. What an interesting 12 months it's been, Dan. That's for sure.
100%. And we might touch on that now in a minute as well. But the reason I say he who shall not be named, I don't think there's been an episode of this podcast where your name hasn't been mentioned. So I make the joke, you probably have to start paying your royalties now at this stage.
Okay. I did hear that with Neil, yeah. And then Sean, actually, I heard that before, yeah. So,
you do listen to the podcast?
I do. But listen to me, were they good comments? Were they always good?
Excellent comments. Right, okay. I think every single thing has to have a little asterisk there for said quote from Owen Lacey.
All right, okay. Well, what I would say is any of those quotes, I'm pretty confident that the information they quoted me wasn't mine. I was just passing it on, so I'm just a messenger.
Fair enough. Hedge your bets there. There's always two considerations for me when I'm talking to you on a podcast or anywhere. And number one is, how do I make sure that I don't sound stupid?
Right, okay.
The amount of information and knowledge that you have. And then number two is, there's so many things that we could possibly talk about. How do you narrow it down to get the most value out of it? So just for this particular conversation, to let people know what we're going to be dipping into,
right.
I kind of have two areas I'd like to go over with you. One is hormonal health. And I know that's extremely broad, but we'll focus it down a little bit when we get there. And then number two is kind of general rules for longevity from a strength and conditioning point of view. So how to build a body that will last the length of time, I suppose.
Okay.
If you don't have a specific performance goal. But to start us off, if people don't know who you are, they obviously haven't been listening to this podcast. Everyone who listens to this podcast will know exactly who you are. But if you have a 30-second elevator pitch just to round up again, elevator pitch of who is Owen Lacey, just to give us a bit of a recap what your story is.
Okay, so I consider myself what I call a performance consultant. So I help people reach high levels of performance through nutrition, training, lab testing, supplementation and coaching. So I work with people from Olympic athletes to UFC athletes to rugby guys, professional soccer players, executives, really high profile. Well, I have a few billionaire clients. 1 trillionaire client since the last
trillionaire client?
1 trillionaire client, yeah. He had one eyebrow, which was interesting. Just one full eyebrow. I hope he's not listening. I'm sure he's not listening.
You obviously can't tell us his name.
Yeah, I can't. But very interesting guy. But so I help people that need to get, there's a great book by Martin Rooney, and it's called Coach to Coach. So what a coach does is help people get to where they need to get to, and they can't get there on their own. So I help people enhance their health, their well-being. Well, it could be business. I've got a lot of trainers and coaches that I mentor online, and it could be personal development, it could be business development, it could be problematic clients. But I'm lucky enough to have dealt with a lot of, like 100% of my people are the problematic people other people have. So every gym or every clinic will have people that they can't get results with. That's all my clinic is dealing with. I'm dealing with people that have difficulty getting to the next level, breaking that plateau, enhancing their health, their fertility, their skin health, their digestion. So that's all I deal with. So I can help other trainers and other coaches and other nutritionists, fill in the gaps or link the dots together to help them. So that's a very long elevator. I think we're at the Empire State Building at this point.
We're on the 73rd floor.
So that's what I do.
Okay, super. And just on that point about your particular approach, what I really love here, because we talked to lots of different people, nutritionists and doctors and dietitians and all sorts of stuff, but you have just curated a huge amount of information from a lot of different world experts and combined that into a single approach. So like performance consulting is probably something people may not have heard before, but essentially it's a culmination of medicine, nutrition, strength and conditioning, rehab, exercise, wellness, all that kind of stuff. That'd be great.
Yeah. And what I find is in any industry, no matter what industry it is, rehabilitation, chiropractic, nutrition, functional medicine, there's not that many experts. And what I like to try to do is I like not to be the most educated person in the room for sure. So even this morning, I spent the first 2 hours this morning studying with Dr. Brian Walsh on blood chemistry and Dr. Dorit Karazi on gut health. And he's got some huge autoimmune research coming out. So when you look at any industry, there's a few people that are experts. And then I study with them. I mentor with them. I learn from them. I go do consultations with them to get better. So the more clients I have, the more questions my clients I need to answer with my clients, the more I align myself with experts. And that's how it might sound like I appreciate you saying I know a lot of stuff, but I don't particularly know a lot of stuff. I know a lot of stuff about a very small field. You talk to me about computers, and I'm going, what are you talking about? Or engineering, or fucking graphic. I don't know anything about that, but in my field, I have width of knowledge in that area, but not huge amount of other stuff. So I appreciate you saying that, but there's certain things that I have no clue about.
Well, I want to ask you about computers. So
yeah, please.
And just again, while we're in this, because it's very interesting to me, you have your finger on the pulse constantly. And it's something that I always think about is the information that we're getting, wherever we're getting it from, how relevant or real or up to date is that? If you are on a daily basis talking to experts, do you find that the landscape of health and wellness and strength and conditioning and all these things you're involved in, does that change really quickly, or has it been fairly consistent for the last 20 years?
No, so how it works is, and you know a lot about this, when you do a research project, you have to do your literary review to see if there's an area for that to be done, you need to do ethical approval and so on. But you need to have a topic. So from a topic to come into, maybe like John Connor, my business partner, he's doing his PhD on MMA athletes and weight cuts. So what we've been doing for the last 15 years, he's now putting into research and getting it published. But it's 10 or 15 years old. Okay. So let's say, for example, there's forms of training like cluster training and blood flow restriction training that have been around for 10, 15 years. But now the research has been done. So what you do is you find the people that are in the trenches dealing with people day in, day out. So I can ring Dr. Serrano and say, look, Doc, I've got this guy, his hemoglobin is through the roof. And he'll say, he's on testosterone. I said, no, he's not. He's on testosterone. I ring the guy, you on testosterone? Oh, I didn't tell you, did I? So stuff like that. People are in the trenches in that field. They know. Now the research will come out to back that up. And one of the things I have a pet hate. People say, "No, evidence based." Yeah. Everything I do from the day go is always evidence based. Is there 15 million peer reviewed research papers on it? Possibly not, but it's always safe. It has to be safe and ethical for you to do it. But the research is behind the times. You know, there's no research to say you can't drink a litre of petrol, but I wouldn't be suggesting people go drink a litre of petrol. So there's certain things that are obviously, I'm making a joke, but it's behind the times. Yeah. And in particular, the information that you're seeing out there is general information. So if you're a podcaster, a blogger, an influencer, a lot of people like to give out general information, and general information suits the general population. And I'm sure you're familiar with the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. As I said earlier on, all my clients are the 20% of people that don't get results with other coaches, other trainers, or nutritionists. But if you're Joe Wicks or you're these other people online that are just throwing out information to people, it'll suit 80% of the people. So, for example, I'm not putting Joe Wicks down. I think he's a very nice guy. He's helped a lot of people with physical exercise during the lockdown. But let's say, for example, he's doing an exercise program on a video. I can guarantee you now, not everyone in the world can do those exercises. They don't have the joint mechanics, stability, strength, coordination. They may have been post-operative. There could multiple reasons, but he doesn't know that. He's given general exercise prescription to anyone to do it. So when people follow recommendations online, they're following coaches and trainers and whoever they may be that are given general information. These guys aren't in the trenches seeing patients in and out. And if they were, they wouldn't be doing that, because they'd know, I can't be doing a jumping jack with someone that just post ACL. Yeah. I can't be doing fucking burpees with someone that has, spondylolisthesis. I can't. So when you're in the trenches, seeing people day in, day out, I don't think you can become a generalist. I think a generalist is someone that's making their money maybe online with followers and, affiliate programs, all these other things. But when you're in the trenches, seeing people day in, day out, your approach is much more specific. It's much more personalised. And when you can make a personalised approach to people, that's a game changer. And for me, I go on about it a lot. I call it a personalised performance plan. Everything that comes into me leaves with a plan for them. In their lifestyle, with their budget, with their restraints, with family commitments and work commitments, you need to put a plan in place that they can follow. And no matter what that is that either to get a degree, if that's to get body composition down, if that's to improve, blood markers or cholesterol markers or insulin management, whatever it is, but it has to be specific to those. And general videos on Instagram and Facebook and diets and low calorie model. And I know I heard you, I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and one of the things you mentioned a lot is your toolbox. Yeah. So the toolbox for me, and I really like the toolbox analogy, but what I like to say to people is two things that you need with a toolbox. You need an A and you need an E. You need action and you need energy. Having these tools in the toolbox are great, but take them fucking out. Fucking use them and use them day in and day out. And every day you need to do the simple things well. So for example, the biggest tool I see in most people's toolbox is the lower calorie deficit and exercise more. That's your hammer. And if all you have is a hammer, everything is a nail. What happens if it's a screw? What happens if it's a ratchet? What happens if it's a bolt? What happens if it's an Allen key? That hammer's going to do fuck all for you. Yeah. So the approach has to be specific to the person. So if all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. People are not going to necessarily improve their health all the time by eating less calories and training more. That's, in my opinion, I'm not going to say it's a moronic approach, but it works for 80% of the people. But as I said, 100% of my people are the 20% that don't get results. The people that have had kids or hormonal problems or digestive problems or sleep issues or the post-athletes or the marathon runners or the multitude of people that come into me. But I need to take out the right tool with action and with energy for the person that's sitting in front of me. And not everyone that comes to me is a nail. So if you're a nail out there, guys, keep your calorie deficit and keep your exercising, but hopefully throughout your life you'll stay a nail. But maybe when you get a bit older, when you hit 40 or 50 or 60 or you have an injury, then that model's not going to work for you.
Yeah. I think I actually had this conversation. It will be out by the time this podcast comes out. It's not out yet, with Brian O'Hengus about implementation. So I like you talking there about taking the tools out of the box, because loads of people have access to this information now, but they don't use it or apply it necessarily, and so they don't know if it's right or wrong, and they just go, I know how to do it, but they live in the grey then.
Yeah, but this is the thing. I pride myself in studying all the time, and these self-help books, and we talked about this before. The Myth of Motivation was a really good book, and in it he says, "Fuck the firewalk." That's the first time I'm going to say, and first and last time I'm going to course. But what I'd say is, people get motivated. And motivation is brilliant and it gets people up and going, but it doesn't get you through the day. Yeah. It's simple things done savagely well. So what I do is I make up a daily list for people. So let's say, for example, a client comes to me, no matter what their goal is, I say, well, what do we need to do? And what do we need to stop doing? Okay, two things. What we need to do, what we need to stop doing. And then we build a day, and then we build a week. And then what do? We follow the fucking plan. And not to say it's rocket science, it's not rocket science, but you've heard the principle 5-2-0. 5 days clean, 2 days off, 0 results. Now, some people might give out to me, oh, don't say clean, you can't say the word clean. Okay, 5 days on the plan, 2 days off the plan, you get 0 results. But you need to invest the time, the focus, the energy in the right tools for the right goal. Then at the end of the week, maybe you sit down, like every Sunday, this is when I do my performance review, I write down, well, what did I do? Did I hit the targets I meant to hit? Now, as I heard you say before, you don't always want to have massively target driven. I'm not a super target driven person, but I have goals and I have a consistency and I have my plan on what I need to do. But if I don't do it, well, why didn't I do that? I got up late, I went to bed too late. I watched one more episode of Sons of Anarchy and I shouldn't have watched it. I just got into that recently.
Did you? Deadly.
I made a move was
10 years later, is it?
I know, it's like, I was just trying to look at some non-brainer point of view. So we do these things, but we need to set the stage, So you need to set the stage for success. And then if you don't follow it all the time, okay, assess why you didn't and then move on. But again, the one tool all the time, it just, I'm not putting other people down that only use hammers. By all means, it does work for a lot of people, but it's not the be all and end all.
Yeah. So that's a nice explanation in terms of how the client that you see in the 20% and all that kind of stuff. Just to make it more relatable for maybe the 80% guy or girl, I don't want to say Mary anymore because poor Mary's getting an awful bash on Joe blogs. We'll go with Joe this time. Joe's sitting at home and he is watching Joe Wicks or whatever. There's no problem with that, as you said, for 80% of people. Yeah. However, maybe a helpful bit of advice would be for Joe blogs to just be a little bit more considerate about the stuff he's absorbing, and maybe start to have a bit of feel around it himself. If he can't come and see you, or maybe he has financial issues, or maybe he doesn't have time or whatever like that to invest in his health, maybe just be a little bit more considerate about the stuff he is consuming and see how he feels, as opposed to, right, Joe says this, so I'm going to do this now. Maybe just have a little look in, so, which I think actually is probably one of the biggest sticking points for most people, is just that 5 minutes to stop and think about, how does this make me feel? I'll just do it because it's there and someone told me to do it. No accountability for me. Off I go. If I'm feeling good or feeling bad, I don't really know because I'm not stopping long enough to find out. And eventually, that person may or may not hit the crash and burn, or they come and see a doctor, they come and see Owen, or they come and see someone, and then you can help them. But I think a lot of people might be able to prevent ever getting there with just 5 minutes. I know you use the full focus planner, and are you still using the full focus planner? Yeah. Or some form of journaling, or just sitting there thinking for 5 minutes. That's where I struggle a lot, and I find a lot of people, they're well able to implement this stuff if they stopped for 5 minutes. But if that's stopping, I think that is a big problem with a lot of people. It's just stopping for a few minutes and having a look in, introspection. Very difficult to do. It's scary, it's horrible, but a lot of people could avoid a lot of bad things down the road with 5 minutes. Do you find that's a common issue?
You know, and this is the thing. There's a great book called Outwitting the Devil. If you haven't read it, man, it's a funny book. It's not meant to be funny, by Neil Poulton Hill. It's an old book, but in it he talks about, he's interviewing the devil, and how does the devil get people to do their work? And he says, I get them to drift. When people drift through the day, do this and then do that and do this, there's no purpose or meaning to their day. Now, I'm not saying you have to be, it's a time schedule, I do this, I do this, I do this. But if you set up, I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to eat, shower, train, meditate, affirmations, whatever you want to do, it's completely up to you. There's a better chance you're going to do that. Yeah. But if you just get up and go aimlessly through the day, don't be surprised by the end of the week when you haven't lost any weight. Don't expect at the end of the week if you haven't educated yourself. Like, stop watching one Netflix episode every night and read a book for an hour. You know, maybe do what I do, put the earphones in and go for a walk. Listen to a podcast or a book, whatever it may be. Or maybe I have a rule in my car, I don't listen to music. So every time I get into the car, it'll go straight into a book or an audio, whatever I'm doing. So simple things, but the fact is, it has to be action, and stopping and reflecting, whether it be on a daily basis or a weekly basis, will keep you on track. For sure it will, you know. And that is a challenge. Yeah. And that's why I had one client of mine, a lovely guy, says, Owen, I don't need you to tell me what to eat. I need you to follow me around slapping food out of my hand. Because it's the accountability. Yeah. It really is. And if people just followed what you said, personal trainers, nutritionists, coaches, we wouldn't have a job. Yeah. They just get it. But and for me, it's not necessarily with the education. And this is one thing Elon Musk talked a lot about. If you want to educate yourself on something, you can. Like, the internet has
everything
free.
Yeah.
Like, you can learn. You can get textbooks online. Like, you can really upskill yourself. But that takes action and it takes energy, and people don't want to devote that to it. So, and there's a great guy, and one of the things I'm really interested in is accelerated learning and skill acquisition. And it's a guy, Peter Hollins, is the leading expert in the world on it. And what he says is, no matter what equation you put down on the whiteboard or any board whatsoever, like to get a degree, PhD, earn €1 million, get in shape, whatever it is, run a marathon, win a medal, whatever it is, energy is involved in that. And when that energy is equal to zero, guess what the outcome is going to be? Zero. Yeah. No matter what the goal is. And we all need energy. And unfortunately, so many people have energy saboteurs. And they could be people. That could be people draining you. There's a lot of energy vampires, as we know. It could be your job, it could be your education, it could be your family, it could be your partner, relationship, it could be anything, it could be your friends. We all have these people. So what we need to do is surround ourselves with people that are helping us move forward. I'm not saying to get rid of your kids, but I can understand when people do that. But definitely there's friendships that you could probably reduce the contact because it's draining to you, and you're propping them up. And there's people that come at you and give you problems the whole time. Where we have a philosophy in the gym. If there's an issue that needs to be addressed in the gym, please bring it to my attention. I want to know what's something can improve, but you better bring a solution, my friend. Don't say, oh well, the change rooms aren't clean or the gym needs maintenance. Come to me with a solution. So problem solution, because that's how we work. That's how the cogs of the wheel move for improvement and increase what we call the centre of excellence. But that's what we need. So every time, you only have a problem if you have a solution. So there's certain things we can change, there's certain things we can't change. I read a book recently by Marcus Aurelius, his journals. I think they're really interesting. And in it, he says, okay, you're a donkey and you're attached to a cart. And you can kick and scream and scrape and drag your feet, but you're going to go from A to B. You're going to go to the next village no matter what you want. So you either can suck it up and walk with the cart, or you can make a big fuss, but you're going to be damaged when you get to the next place. And for me, I thought that was interesting. But there's lots of stuff you can do and learn from situations. Like in this situation, we're under a lot of stress. Everyone's under a lot of stress. And one of the biggest things that they've attributed to stress is the loss of control. And not necessarily loss of control, but being not in control of a situation. So at this moment in time, we're not in control of what's going on. We're being these restrictions and stress and so on. And this, what I call the COVID collateral, affects a loads of things. Just the second week of January, unfortunately, 3 friends of mine, one old football friend and 2 guys that one of my closest friends and one of the gym staff, their dads died. 3 of them in 1 week. It was horrific. And they died with COVID. They didn't die because of COVID. One was quite sick, one had a lung transplant. So there's circumstances. But they can't grieve. They can't say goodbye. And that's not nice. That's not nice to be in that situation where you can't control it. But everyone is in control of something. So right now we have more time at home, more time to study, more time to exercise, more time for mindfulness, more time for meditation or whatever it is. And I don't, it's completely up to the people out there listening to what they want to do. But you're in control of certain things. And you're in control of your own thoughts and your own focus. And as a therapist friend of mine said to me, nobody can make you feel any way you don't want to feel. You make yourself feel it. Now, I understand depression, anxiety, and that's a different realm. But there's a lot of stuff that we can do. And one of the things I talk to my clients about, we all have this internal talk. I like to think of it like a cartoon. Remember the cartoons with the devil on one shoulder? Yeah. Eat the cake, kiss the girl, yeah. And then you have the angel, no, don't do it. So we all have this self-talk. And what I would say is I don't want to know what your self-talk person or what the communication you have with them. But I can guarantee you that self-talk person does not read people's minds. They cannot read people's minds and they cannot tell the future. So that person's inside going, no, don't do that on. He thinks you're a gobshite. That girl doesn't like you. Or don't do that. That's not good for your career. Or don't stand up in front of that people do the presentation because I know what's going to happen. You're going to make a balls of it. They don't know that. They don't know that. So and knowing that self-talk is making this stuff up, that you have to say to yourself, and we call it cats and ants. I'm sure you've heard it before. Ants are automatic negative thoughts. People go straight towards the negative thoughts, straight off the bat. Where I would say to people, and it's a cognitive behavioral therapy scale, is where you think of something negative, you automatically have to force yourself to think about something positive. So, for example, coming in here today, I said to my wife, I'm going in to do this podcast with Dan. Did it last year. I can't believe it's a year. I'm going to make sure I give people useful information like the last time. And I set the stage for that. But then in the back of my mind, maybe I'll fluff my words, or maybe I'll say something silly, or maybe I'll course. And I said I'd course once. That's my time.
It's done, yeah.
It's done now.
No pressure.
So, but when I think about it, but how many podcasts have I done? How many times have I stood in front of people talking before? So you rely on that saying, well, okay, of course you can. And I think it actually sharpens your skill set. So one of the things when I chat to these billionaire guys and wealthy guys, I always not that I try to feed from them, but they ask me questions, I ask them questions. And one of the questions I ask these guys is, how do you be so successful in business? And he said, first of all, you need some capital. You need money talks, but you need to work hard. And you need due diligence. So you need to do your homework. So if you're a parent, like there's no parent handbook. There is none. But I'd ask parents out there, how many times have you read a book on parenting skills or psychology of kids or emotional stress? Have you done that? You know, I had one friend of mine and his child wasn't sleeping whatsoever. And this went on for over 2 years. And then he eventually was in a conversation and someone said, Jesus, you look wrecked. He goes, yeah, the child isn't sleeping, whatever. I brought this therapist in and it was a game changer. It was €750. And he's like, no way. A few days later, he said, I'll try it out. One weekend. One weekend. And the child slept and he's like going, the best $750 I've ever spent in my life. So when it comes to success in any business, you can look, I'm not saying kids are business, I'm not saying that at all, but research it, look into it, see what skills you can do to enhance your situation. But we are in control. There's certain things we're not in control of, but in any situation, and Jack Canfield has a great quote, you're 100% responsible for where you are in your life. Now when it comes to health and disease, I would disagree with that, but in your job, in your relationship, and you can change things, and you have the power, but you need action and you need energy. It doesn't happen by chance,
Yeah, it's sometimes not a popular thing to say because it can be interpreted the wrong way. I find this quite a lot. But it's very interesting to me to hear you say that. And over the last 6 months or so, talking to people like Brian O'Loughlin, we did an episode a while ago, and it's been wildly popular. People really love it because they could relate with the message she was saying. She said very similar things to what you just said there about kind of not cleaning house, but understanding and interacting with people in a different way. And not feeding off the negative energy and not getting caught up and be the leaf on the wind and just kind of float along with it on and allow other people to influence your mind. And I think I said this to you 2 years ago when I was chatting to you. We talked about taking control of your own health, and sometimes people hear that and they say, well, it's not my fault because A, B, C, D and the government and the bad roads and the pothole and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of would have been like that as well until I started to be in contact with people like yourself and like Brian and all these different people who are all in their own way, in own manner, successful, whatever success means to you, move in the right direction, positive mindset, enthusiastic every time we talk to them, really passionate about what they're doing. I was like, fucking hell, what are all the boys doing? And I recognised a really common theme about not just giving out about things you can't control, setting your habits out, doing the small little things, the 20-80, Pareto, all that kind of stuff. And for me, it's fascinating that every single person in some shape or form is starting to say, you can pull these similar threads out, this small little 20%, simple things. But sometimes I have a conversation with a friend of mine. I never volunteer this stuff. I've learned my lesson. Keep my mouth shut unless I'm asked about something. And it becomes really, really hard to not sound like you're preachy, or to not rise to the argument when someone says, "Well, I can't fucking do that. How am I supposed to do that? Like it's too expensive, or I can't do that. Or I don't understand." But I completely agree with you. For just on mic for the record, everybody can do something.
Oh, 100%.
1% of something.
Yes, and this is the situation I get, and I get this from friends of mine as well. I get this from colleagues. So, for example, you have an accountant. I had a consultation with an accountant yesterday, and she came to me from a referral from somebody else, and she's like, "Oh, I can't get my nutrition sorted. I don't have time. I have kids and so on. I work from home." And I said, "What do you do for a living?" "I'm an accountant, down." "Your own accountancy company?" "Okay. So how did you get to be an accountant?" "Went to college, I studied, I interned, and so on." So the devotion and time that you put into your education and your career, you're not willing to put into your health. So people think they're going to get healthy in 6 weeks. It's not a 6 weeks thing. So there's always areas of opportunity, and people are in jobs. "Oh, I hate my job." Well, what do you want to do then? Devote some time, sit in a room quietly on your own, think about where you want to be. Is there any person that's doing a job you'd like to be? Contact him. What did you do? Or is there facets of your job that you don't like? Can you speak to your manager and say, "This component of my job really drains me. I hate doing the admin part. Could I maybe upskill in certain areas? Or on this ladder, where is my possibility of moving?" But they haven't had these conversations. They haven't sat back and been objective and saying, "Well, I'm not happy where I am. What can I currently change my situation?" They just drift. And they drift and they moan and they give out about it. I'm not saying people are all negative. I'm not saying that at all. I understand people need to make money and there's mortgages and marriage and kids and stress. I get all that. But there is things that you can't change. There 100% is. And maybe that's to go to see someone and them to help you to identify where on your roadmap you can change your direction. But you can't give out where you are in life if you're not willing to put time into yourself. You know?
Why do you think people are drifting? Because I have a theory on this. I'll see if it's the same as yours. It probably is. Why are so many people caught in that grey, drifting, floating mindset at the moment?
This is the thing. I use the health sat nav as a bit of an analogy to my clients. We're in a car, we know where we currently are, we know where our destination is. Sometimes, particularly Irish women, and I apologise if I'm going to insult women here, I don't mean to do that, but a lot of women in my life in particular, their focus is not on their destination, it's other people's destination. It's their kids, it's their husband, it's their family, friends, and they're looking after everybody else but themselves. And I have them sitting in the clinic with me. They're 40 or 50 years of age, and they've given everything to every child, or every partner, and they've had stress, and they've just taken it. They've taken it on board and looked after everybody. Where they get up every day, and their goal is to help other people, or it's someone that's focused on their business. And I've said this many times before. I used to use a hat as an example. We all have different hats. I've a hat as a husband. I've a hat as a father, a brother, an uncle, a son, an employer, an employee, a friend. But sometimes we only have a focus on one hat. And the hat is work hat. Feck work. Feck it. On our deathbed, are we going to worry that we didn't work more? You know, and wealth, in my opinion, is having the right amount of money but more time. Time is the most precious thing in the world, and no matter how much billions or trillions you have in the bank, if it's your last day, it's your last day. You can't say, "Hey God, if you believe in that stuff, here's a trillion, give us another weekend." It doesn't work like that. So for me, I think it's maybe people aren't focused on it. Maybe they just, it's habitual, it's genetic, it's what their father or mother or sister or people around them. So I don't know why people drift. What's your take?
Well, my theory on it is, and look, let me just qualify this by saying I don't believe there are evil overlords trying to control us. But my theory on this is the world that we live in is actively, it's not good for us. There's things that are actively taking away that time. They're distractions. Where I think we're conditioned now to focus on the individual thing, that we have to get a good job, we have to get a nice car, we have to have a big and there's not necessarily wrong or evil with those things. We have to spend such an amount of time posting on social media so other people like us, all these different things that we're being told we have to do, not by the evil master, just by the world that we live in. It's a competitive, aggressive, difficult thing to do, is to stay alive in this world. And I think we take that for granted. It takes up all of our time and energy focus on all those different things that we just think these are the important things, and our health is not a priority for us because we don't really notice that until we're maybe late 40s, early 50s, things start to go wrong. I used to say the heart attack comes along or something happens and I go, shit, I should have done this for the last 30 years. What was I doing? So I thought about that. I'm 55 and I've had a heart attack. I'm saying, what was I doing? And I look back at all the things, if I kept going, that I would be doing, focusing on trying to get that new 5 Series or that new house or spending on my time. I used to laugh about, I caught myself sitting on my phone scrolling one day years ago, and it was a cat falling off the roof, and I was laughing, and I was like, I could literally type in how to do brain surgery and learn how to do, not that I would, learn how to do brain surgery, and I'm sitting here drooling out the side of my mouth looking at this cat falling off this roof, and I was like, holy shit, what am I doing? Yeah. Apply that to the 55-year-old. What was I doing? I was looking at cats falling off roofs. I was comparing myself to all my friends. And if I was there, having had a heart attack, I'd look back at all that stuff and say, Jesus fucking Christ, that distracted me from all the other things I could do. So that's my theory. It's not that people are, because again, this is what it sometimes sounds like when people interpret it. People aren't lazy or they don't lack this magic firework of motivation or like that. They're being actively distracted. The food isn't good. The environment isn't good. All these things are actively subtracting from you. So the way I look at it is, it's now my job to try and build a barrier against all that stuff that's subtracting from me. And all of a sudden, it gives me the space maybe to think about my sleep a little bit more, or all that stuff that when some people listen to Owen Lacey talking, they go, that's 5,000 things. How am I supposed to, like, we're going to talk about hormones in a second. How am I supposed to think about, I don't even know what a hormone is. I have to think about my fucking bills today. I have to go up at 6 o'clock to get the kids ready. But when you look backwards from where you could be, the whole deathbed thing, you go, oh, hold on. If I start this now in the next 6 months to a year, that gives me all this time and space, and you said action and energy, give me all that back. And then I can start building all these. Geez, I don't care about the 5 Series. My car works fine. It's grand. All right, now I can afford a Bugatti because I'm after doing 2 years of thoughtful, insightful thinking. I've built a better life myself. If money is your thing, now I can get more money. So that's kind of what I think. We're actively being distracted. So it is our responsibility to recognise that, number one, and then start to apply and implement all these different tools in the toolbox.
I want to just agree with you. And that's one thing about social media. It can zap you.
Oh, big time.
And I use the analogy to my clients, excuse me, mobile phone. So on your mobile phone, you have apps, right? And all these apps, believe it or not, they drain your battery on your phone. So when you wake up in the morning and you see the percentage in your phone, let's say it's 100%. If I ask people out there what their percentage is on their energy in the morning, I'd be surprised if most people say 40%. Right?
Really,
40%. People are dragging their ass, particularly for the first hour. They're dragging themselves through the day, and you know when you're in the they call it the flow. I don't necessarily agree with that, but when you're in the moment, you're switched on.
Things are happening.
You know, your brain is going on. You're switched on. You're cognitively, focused. You're creative. You're happy. Things are going well. That's what people want to have, and when you get so much more done. And it's not about the length of time that you put into a task. It's your creativity, your focus, and what you can get done in that time frame. Spending 4 hours writing an article doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a quality article. Where if you're on the moment, in the flow, understand what you're doing, you can get a lot done in a short space of time. But people are going around at 40%. Imagine if they focus on 1 month on getting that 40% to 80%. Imagine how productive that day would be. Imagine what the interaction would be with your kids, with your wife, with your friends, with your family members, that you're in a much better place. And unfortunately, I'm wrecked from work. I didn't get food today. I didn't get to the gym. And then you're putting yourself down. You're putting yourself down because your energy is so fucking low. So there's a lot of stuff we can do. And we can talk about hormones. And I'll quickly say this. I understand I talk fast and I talk about random topics, but there's 5 key things. 5 key things that if everyone on this podcast listens today, there's 5 key things that will enhance your health, your energy and your action. Number 1 is sleep. You need to get that sleep sorted. It's the lowest hanging fruit for so many people. And now you have the time to do it. Number 2 is food. Food is broken down into 2 major categories, macronutrients and micronutrients. And I'm sure you've all heard about this, proteins, fats and carbs. The problem that I have with that is food isn't just macronutrients. It's also micronutrients. Excuse me. vitamins and minerals, and a lot of people are deficient in them, 100% deficient in them. And if you're taking any medication, guys or girls, whether it be the pill or whether it be an inhaler or Lipitor, you deplete them. You 100% deplete them. And what the most trainers say, hammer is reduce your calorie deficit and to exercise more, both of which bring down your vitamin and mineral content. A lower calorie diet is categorically a low vitamin and mineral diet, 100%. You eat less food, you get less vitamins and minerals. Excuse me. The fourth thing there is water. Every time I do a blood chemistry on people are dehydrated. Your brain needs water, your muscles need water, your blood needs water. For your body to communicate, it needs correct hydration, and it is a chronic issue. And the last thing is air. We need to breathe better, we need better purified air in our bodies. And if you focus on those 5 things, you will have more energy, more action to do whatever you need to do. But it's simply put, and I hope I haven't spoke too fast there, we have sleep, macronutrients, micronutrients, water and air. You do those 5 key things, your battery will be much more recharged in the morning, and no matter what you want to do, it will be enhanced. But don't expect to get through life on a 20% battery. You wouldn't leave the house with a 20% battery. You know, people relate to that. The more apps you have on your phone, the more it drains. So as Dan said there, if you have all these apps open, they're going to drain your battery and there's going to be nothing left. When you get home to talk to the kids, you get home to talk to your wife, you're like, oh man, I'm so disengaged, I'm so switched off, I can't be in the moment. But if your energy was 80% and you selectively went into your social media, selectively went into your emails, selectively went into your text messages at set times, it wouldn't drain you so much. But what do we have? We've all these fucking notifications, beep, beep, beep. I have 0 notifications on my phone. If you want me, ring me, I'll answer the phone if I'm available. But other than that, I have times to check my emails, I have times to check my text messages, of times to see the Instagram messages, and I don't have Facebook Messenger. So I try to narrow it down because it's not worth it. And this is the thing, you know, let's say you're in the car and your phone beeps and the 4 text messages and you open them, you just don't have time to answer them. I'm coming in to see you. Yeah. So I'm then the back of my mind, that email, I have to go back to that client, has to explain what a low histamine diet is, or that client doesn't know what SIBO is, I'll have to go back to that person. But I like to use the 2-touch method. In football, we used to always do 2-touch. So I only touch it twice. I touch it once to see what's identified, if it's urgent, and then the second touch to reply to it. So I'm not there half arsing and half responding to emails, because then you're not going to give your client the best information, or if it's in your business, you're not going to do the correct job. Sit down, focus on that one task rather than trying to multitask.
Yeah, absolutely. I love hearing this come from your perspective as a health expert. I know you don't like the word expert, but a health expert. And it brought me back. I had Dan O'Farrell. I don't know if you hear the episode with Dan. And he came at this from a kind of an emotional, I suppose, point of view as well. And he said, if you can take care of yourself a little bit better and you're a little bit happier and more focused and more conscientious, the next person that meets you and touches off you and engages with you is going to have a better experience with you, which in turn is going to give you a better experience. And if you have that, was it on Postad where it was the executive and he was angry and the delivery guy came in and he shouted at him, and then he went and he shouted at the bus driver, and the bus driver shouted at the kid, and the kid went home and shouted at the teacher went home, and it turned out the teacher was the wife of the CEO, and it was this horrible loop of negative emotions going around and around and around and around. So if you can improve yourself from a health point of view, an emotional point of view, and an energy point of view, everything that you interact with, everything you do is going to be better. It's going to be improved. Yeah, it's fascinating.
It is. And I've a friend of mine, his name is Kevin Darby. He runs a company in Toronto called DTS Fitness Education. And he had a master's in adult education. And he worked for the Toronto Police Department for years.
Oh, cool.
And also the SWAT team. Phenomenal guy. But his attention to detail with adult education was phenomenal. So when you communicate in the military, you don't fluff your words. There's no waffle going on. It's clear, concise, and understood. That's it. So I do these presentations. I might do about excuse me, I'm going to do a glass of water.
Yeah, go for it.
I do these presentations maybe 4 or 5 times a year with him. And every break, every presentation, lunch break, he give me some feedback. I'm like, oh Jesus, this fella give me feedback every single day. but it refined the skill set. So when it comes to communication, and like Michelin star restaurants are the same thing. I'm doing a job for a gym in Saudi Arabia at the moment, where we're building a portfolio and a training course for trainers. So people think that it's what you say. Communication is very little about what you say. When you walk into a room, so let's say for example my wife rings me on the phone. She can say, "Hey babe," I'm going, "Oh no." I can tell whether it's money, if the kids have done something wrong, if someone is happy, healthy, horny. I can tell from 2 words. You know that yourself. Hopefully my wife's not reading you, but you can tell that. But you can tell that.
Yeah.
So when you walk into a room and you greet people, how you point your hand, how you point your finger, how your eye contact, your body language, you can express things that you don't realise that. Now, obviously, if you go off and do NLP and then your body language and so on, you can start to not manipulate. That's the wrong word, but you want to put people at ease. You know, you want to make people feel happy, you know, and comfortable. But if you're at 20% or 40%, you don't take that into consideration.
Yeah.
You know, when someone walks in, you go, man, he looks tired today. I hope he's okay. But if you're at 20% or 30%, you mightn't see that. If your wife comes in or you use certain language or you're abrupt or you're short or your tone, people get that, you know, and it doesn't take a lot, but when you're at 80%, you're on it. You're on it. You know, when you walk into a room, and I say to all our trainers all the time, clients come to our gym, they train, they want to escape from work. And when I meet them, and I make it my business that every single client in the gym I say hello to or some way. And what I do is I'll normally make a note of, Don has a horse and I might talk with the horse, or I might remember Darren has 2 kids, or, you know, John plays golf, and I might just have these little things. So they go, geez, he remembered him.
Yeah,
you know,
he cares.
golf. You know, so it's just a little bit of a bond. But in every situation, no matter where you are, your body language, your hand movements, your eye contact, your language, you can instill positive and encouragement and motivation to people. And that's I'm not going to say it's people are inherently like that. You can learn that skill. Actors are doing that day in, day out. When you see Robbie Downey Jr. stand up, like, man, he's a slick mother dude, and he comes across that way. But that's something that he's learned. He's developed over years. But when you're coaching people, like, it's funny when I used to coach rugby teams and lots of guys, you need to have a certain, you know,
presence,
demeanor, presence. You know, your language has to be a certain way. But then when you're teaching adults, in a seminar, it's very different. When you're coaching someone from an S&C point of view, from an MMA athlete or a wrestler, it's very different. And also what I found, and this is why I've gone to this topic, I train wrestlers, right, in Azerbaijan. And I know you understand that I don't speak Azerbaijani very well at all. So imagine coaching 70 wrestlers in a room and you don't speak any English. And your translator is trying to translate and he's not got a very good rapport with them, and he's not that big and he's not expressing himself correctly. So I'm talking about chicken, I'm doing the chicken dance, and I'm trying to tell him about squat depth and all that sort of stuff. So you have to really refine your skills, but everybody has that. And that, unfortunately, if it's positive, it spreads well. If it's negative, it even goes further. So I think a lot of people have to maybe internally look at how they deal with people, how they communicate with people. But negative energy for sure can migrate, and as you said in that ad, can manifest through people's days, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And the lovely thing about what you just said there is this is not a hopeless case if someone's on 20 or 30%. This is what we're talking about. You can intervene and you can change that for yourself. I'm not a high energy person. What does that mean? It means you don't have high energy right now, but there's probably a million things you could do to get yourself there. So it's not like some people just aren't high energy and they don't have the ability to do this. I believe pretty much, apart from the odd outlier, everybody can. Absolutely everybody can. And small, I know this sounds cliched and it's over and over again, but it's really important. It's small, consistent steps can get you there. And all of a sudden, in 6 months' time, you're on 60%. That's double. Like, that's huge. 60% is huge.
100%. And when I hear people say, oh, I'm a night owl. No, my friend. Can you see in the dark? If you can see in the dark, you're a night owl. If you're not, now there's what's called chronotypes.
I was just going to ask you about that, because some people, Matthew Walker's obviously been very popular lately because he was on Rogan on his book, and it's insane. But some people go, I knew it. I'm not a day person.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what that means.
No, well, if you actually look up the research, the chronotypes only vary from 2 to 3 hours max.
Yeah.
So maybe you're someone that goes to bed at 10 o'clock, or maybe you're someone that goes to bed at 12 or 1.
Yeah.
There's no one going to bed at 4, my friend.
Yeah.
There's no one dragging himself out of ass at 10 o'clock in the morning. Maybe you're a 6 o'clock person. I have a good friend of mine, Seamus Fox. He's a 4 a.m. guy, and that's fair play to him. Off you go, my friend. But for me, it depends. It depends on your schedule, it depends on your kids, it depends on your lifestyle. But we all need sleep. And our circadian clocks, both our central and our peripheral circadian clocks, need to be in check. They regulate your cellular function. So it's like your charger. If your phone isn't plugged in, don't be surprised if it's not charged in the morning. Your sleep and your circadian clock systems are fundamental. And we've talked a lot about sleep, so
yeah.
I'm not going to get down that.
There's a few episodes with Owen Lacey on sleep. Yeah, I don't know why I had a funny image there when you mentioned Canadian SWAT team of a bunch of guys knocking on the door. We're going to come in, eh?
yeah.
No, I know it's obviously a highly trained military unit, so but I just had that funny image in my head. Right, we better actually talk about the thing that's ever going to talk about this because someone's sitting there going, I haven't fucking talked about
what are they saying,
but they're all absolutely top class information, by the way, so far. So just to follow this conversation into the first topic we were going to get into, which was hormonal health, I just wanted to have a little chat with you about this because obviously I've been familiar enough with this over the last few years, working with Dr. Sam and seeing yourself and Robbie, and I've had a lot more exposure to what this actually means. But for most people, it is that kind of dark art that's not really, people are starting to be accepting of, okay, I need to sleep better. Good health's really important. Yeah, I need to take care of my nutrition. Need to have good habits. But hormonal health is tied into all of that, absolutely all of that. But it's kind of, let the doctor, I'll go to the endocrinologist and he'll take care of that. But other than that, I don't really understand what is hormonal health. But I look at a lot of the common issues people would have nowadays, specifically with mood and fatigue, fertility, and trying to achieve an optimal level of performance, and hormonal health tied in with all of that. Yeah. So just as maybe a kind of a toe in the water introduction to hormonal health, how does that factor into your approach to a person? This person has issues that are not necessarily one thing or the other thing, but we've tested them and we can see their hormonal health is all over the place. How do you approach that as an issue or topic?
Right, so first of all, I hear this topic all the time about balanced diets and balanced hormones. You will never get balanced hormones. Yeah. Hormones are not meant to be balanced in one-to-one. So what you need is, you need the hormones to be of the right amount, have the right conversion and the right uptake for the cells. So for example, let's say I use my car keys as an example. My house keys will not open your house. Okay, so you have a hormone, okay, and it goes into a certain receptor, and then it has an expression on that house. So my house keys will go into my front door and open the door, and I'll get entry into my house. So we need certain amount of hormones, whether it be testosterone or estrogen or progesterone and so on, and we need to do the job. Unfortunately, a doctor will only intervene when it comes to hormones when the door no longer opens at all. When there's either you're too high or you're too low. But there's a lot of issues in between, and it could be there for 15 minutes wiggling the key. There could be something wrong with the door. I mightn't have my keys. The key might be damaged. So for me, when it comes to hormones, there's a lot of stuff going wrong. The biggest hormonal problem that I see in Ireland and in my patients is an insulin issue. So insulin's major job is to store sugar in our body. So in the presence of a lot of sugar, glucose come into the body, insulin will go up, grab onto it and try and store it. Now, for most of the time when our body is storing insulin, it will store it hopefully in our muscle tissue, into where we are glycogen depleted, or it will store it in as fat tissue. But over time, the body becomes resistant to that, and then we start storing the sugar in other tissues, like our liver, like our muscle, inside our muscle, which is not what we want, and that can cause problems. Another hormone that causes a big issue is thyroid problems. So the thyroid range in most labs are what we call a TSH. TSH is what's called thyroid stimulating hormone. It isn't actually a thyroid hormone at all. And it actually comes from the pituitary. And what it is the question. So it'd be like me saying to you, Dan, give me thyroid hormone, give me thyroid hormone, give me T4, give me T4. And if you're not listening, I shout a little louder. And all of a sudden my TSH goes higher and higher and higher because you're no longer responding to me. And that can manifest in cold hands, cold feet, irregular menstrual cycle, constipation, weight gain, loss of the third of your eyebrow. So there's a multitude of reasons why hormones could be off whack. But a doctor will only address it once it goes out of the range. But it can be problematic for a long time before that. So what I want to get across to people is what we can do from a nutrition, from a lifestyle point of view, is to enhance our hormones. And the best way to enhance our hormones, the most controllable hormone in our body, is insulin.
Okay.
So our window, like I can sit here right now, and if I was to punch you in the arm, or I was to, insult you or shout, we would release adrenaline and noradrenaline, and then 5 to 10 minutes later we get some cortisol release. So it's a very sort of slower hormone. Adrenaline, noradrenaline are neurotransmitters. They get released extremely fast, but cortisol gets released slower. But that's a stress hormone, and that can cause a cascade in the body. But insulin is our easiest to control hormone. So by controlling our carbohydrate intake, by food combining, we can have a positive feedback. But high insulin will affect cortisol. Cortisol elevation will slow down thyroid function over time. People's menstrual cycle, we have cholesterol as the raw material for our testosterone, for our estrogen. And if we have low cortisol or a lot of inflammation, that can interfere with it. So to talk about hormones, I don't want to bog people down. Hormones are not the be all and end all. For some people, that's a problem that needs to be addressed, and it can be addressed strongly through vitamins and minerals. So there's cofactors. So for example, we have, for want of a better word, brain hormones called neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, and so on. Every single one of them requires B6 as a cofactor and a coenzyme. We need that to facilitate that. But people that drink alcohol deplete B6. People that only eat green vegetables don't have high levels of B6. So if I was to look at someone's liver enzymes and I have indications of low B6, definitely going to impact on health. A woman taking a contraceptive pill needs B6 and B9 and B12 to process that. So they may be causing mental and mood and anxiety issues by having depleted B vitamins. So not to say that it's purely a hormonal issue. We need to live a life that's complementary to our hormones. We need to have a diet that's complementary to our hormones. And unfortunately, calorie restriction and too much exercise is detrimental long term to hormonal balance. So for example, I came in here today, didn't shake your hand. All right, no fist bump. No fist bump, no hand, no hugs. And we have a hormone called oxytocin, which we get from. It's called a hug hormone. You also get it from doing charity work. You get it from animals. You get it from doing sex and so on. So not with animals. That's different altogether. So we have these hormones that we need to have in balance, and a lot of people have hormonal imbalance, and that hammer is not the fix. No, I don't. It's very challenging for me to explain all the hormonal imbalance that could go on. But needless to say, the biggest two that have a problem for people is insulin management and also thyroid. And if you do have an issue losing weight, if your cognition is going down, if you've got cold hands, cold feet, if menstrual cycle is an issue, if you've had miscarriages, definitely I think those two need to be addressed. Now, for men, testosterone levels. One of the things people think that testosterone levels are all about having erections and libido. It's not. Testosterone is largely focused on mental health, on satisfaction from things. So when you do something, you should be satisfied from it, get enjoyment from it. If you don't, if you're just a bit flat, if you're putting on a bit of weight in the belly, if your libido has gone down, and you're not even cared your libido gone down, chances are your testosterone has gone down. Now, this is, again, I don't want to go off on one, but inside our fat tissue, people used to think that fat tissue doesn't do anything. And if you look at the textbooks, what they say adipocytes or fat cells do is they shock absorption and insulin and insulation. So they keep the heat in and they prevent shock. Next thing, but they don't. There's a lot of enzymes and hormones. So what actual fat tissue can do, it can take testosterone, and I call it the GOC1, and it changes it over to estrogen. So the more fat tissue a man has, the more they're castrating themselves. Now, that hormone's called aromatase. But on women, it takes the estrogen and transfers the testosterone. So a woman may develop PCOS or hairier arms or more cysts in their ovaries, and a multitude of issues that can cause that. So your lifestyle impacts your hormones, and it impacts your cofactors. It impacts your detoxification. So for example, women that have estrogen in the body, estrogen, when it's done its job in the body, will go to the liver, and the liver says, okay, there's estrogen, let's add on a vitamin, let's add on a mineral, and then we'll send it down to the stool and we'll poo it out. It's be gone. Unfortunately, a lot of women, when this what we call conjugated or detoxifiable estrogen is down in the gut, if the gut isn't healthy, the body can take that vitamin off, take that mineral off, and it can go back into recirculation. And then all of a sudden, the cue for estrogen going into the liver gets higher and higher and higher. And then we have estrogen dominance, and we have an imbalance between progesterone and estrogen. And women have irregular menstrual cycles and mood swings and weight gain and all other issues. And that's not necessarily a production issue. It's a removal or elimination issue. For some men, it's not that. It's the amount of testosterone they have is that they're converting it. Every time you have a smoke or you roll a joint or you have a drink, you're bringing your testosterone down. So I have a very simple way of assessing hormones, and I apologise if this is beyond the scope of some of our listeners, but I call it the tracer. So when you look at hormones, you look at one, T stands for transportation. All hormones need to be transported through the body. So that you could have high or low levels of transportation. For example, sex hormone binding globulin binds onto testosterone. It'd be like me getting my salary every week and my wife taking it all. Actually, it's exactly like that. So that could be one issue, right? Second issue is the receptors. So the cells need to understand the receptors, but maybe you have insulin resistance. Maybe your cell is like, no, I'm not listening to you anymore. You've been knocking on my door for the last 10 years with this sugar. I don't want any more. And the body will store it somewhere else. The next thing is the amount. Maybe the gland's like, I'm not making any more of this. Maybe there's a problem. Maybe there's dysfunction going on. Next thing is conversion. A lot of hormones need to be converted. So for example, TSH speaks to the thyroid. The thyroid releases T4 and some other thyroid hormones, but mainly T4. And then our body takes T4 T4 and convert it to T3. T3 is our usable form. So it'd be like me asking my boss for money. My boss paid me in dollars. I can't use dollars. I need to convert it to euro so I can use it. But can you see there can be an issue there? The conversion or the Bureau de Change might not have anyone there. We might not be able to transform the money over. And then the doctor looks at my TSH going, well, that's okay. It looks at your T4 saying that's okay. But the conversion is an issue. Or it could be that I'm inflamed, or I do too much exercise, or I yo-yo dieted and my body's like, I'm not listening to you. Like, I know Oprah Winfrey, it came out years ago that Oprah Winfrey, it was a thyroid problem. That was her issue. It wasn't the last 25 years of going yo-yo dieting that caused her thyroid to be dysfunctional. That's what she manifested at the end. I don't think that's the issue, to be honest with you. So we have conversion. The next one we have is expression. So for example, testosterone, there's a certain range you can look at. Let's say it's 3 to 23. And let's say, Dan, you're 10. And I say, oh, you're in range, you're fine. Yeah. But maybe you were always 20. Maybe you were always 20. And I didn't know that because I'm just looking at your number now. So the expression and how people feel. So for me, it's symptoms orientated. If you feel crappy, maybe that 10 is half what it was normally. So how you're actually feeling with your current level of hormones. And take into consideration, these ranges that labs have, they're Homer Simpson ranges. They're the average person. And that's not you. So you have to look at things with a pinch of salt. If you still have a lot of symptoms, and you're in the range, well, maybe we can do stuff to increase the range. And the last one there is R stands for ratio. And all hormones need to be in some sort of ratio with one another. So just to relate those again, it's called tracer. T stands for transportation. R stands for receptors, how well we listen to the actual hormone. A is the amount of the hormone itself. C is if it needs to be converted. A lot of hormones go through a pathway of conversion. E is the expression of how the body is understanding the hormone. And R is the ratio of one another. And from a nutritional point of view, everything we eat, everything we drink, everything we think, everything we breathe, everything we exercise, we're speaking to our body. And one of my pet hates is people and in the medical industry we have compartments. We have an endocrinologist, we have a gastroenterologist, we have a psychologist. It's all you. It's all in you. So it's very hard to have purely just a hormonal problem. It's very hard just to have a purely digestive problem. All the body is linked together, and we call this the level of organisation. So all our tissues are made up in our body are from cells. Our tissues make our organs make our organ systems, and our organ systems make our organism. So we're all made up of cells. So fundamentally, it's a cellular dysfunction. There's some cell not doing their job. It could be a liver cell, bone cell, thyroid cell, ovarian cell, pancreatic cell, testis cell, but there's cell dysfunction going on. So for us, what do we need to do to enhance cell health? Is that a phospholipid membrane? Is that fish oil? Is it vitamin E as an antioxidant for the cell? Is it to get stuff in and outside the cell? So for example, how things get in and outside our cell is what's called the sodium-potassium pump. But if sodium-potassium is imbalanced in our body because we're dehydrated, you can't get that receptor in. Or maybe we've been eating trans fats or hydrogenated fats for the last 10 years and our cells are made up of rigid, horrible fat and nothing can get in and out because we haven't had any good oils in our body. Or maybe we don't have enough amino acids. We know that our nucleus in our cells has the, if you want to call it, the recipe for everything that needs to go on. But it has no building blocks. So if you're not eating protein, you have this recipe, but you can't actually build anything because you don't have the amino acids and then the cofactors and so on. So there's, again, I'm going down a rabbit hole and I don't mean to do that. But what I'm saying is simplistically put, if you want to assess hormones, assess symptoms. If you want to really gain optimal health, treat the cell. It's the smallest thing that can have the biggest impact on everything in the body.
Yeah. I love that. And just to put that in a story that's probably very familiar for a huge percentage of people, I'll use men because I'm a man and I've seen this over and over and over again, is I'm not feeling good, maybe carrying a bit more weight, mood is low, etc, etc, etc. Go to see my doctor. And by the way, not a doctor bashing exercise. The system is what the system is. When you understand it, you can interact with it a lot better. Go to your doctor. Doctor says, oh, and brilliant, your testosterone is 10, so you're fine, you're in range. See you later. And you're like, but I still feel crap. So that's a better metric for you as a person because the doctor has done the doctor's job. The doctor has looked at the range. That's the doctor's job. So they've done their job. You're not a massive red flag for what they're looking for, but you still feel crappy. And that's one thing I have talked to so many people who are like, yeah, I got my health check and I'm fine. So, but you're not. Why'd you go to the doctor? Because I feel terrible. Do you feel terrible now? Yeah. So you're not fine.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, but the doctor said I was fine. And then it's that kind of feeling of hopelessness because I went to the doctor, he said I'm fine, so there's no problem. I'm just going to feel like this for the rest of my life. And what I love about what you say and what I'm going to communicate in my own words here is that's not the end of the road. there is something going on if you don't feel good. Definitely. Whatever it is, I don't know. Probably it could be one of any of the things that you just described there, but there's ways of finding out, and you shouldn't feel like that. That is the bottom line. So if you have gone to the doctor and you feel bad and you've gotten your results back and they all look good, there's no big red flags, that's not the end of the line. If you don't feel good, you don't feel good. That's why I love you being able to explain all that kind of stuff, because there's so many things there which might sound overwhelming, but for me, that's really positive, because, oh my God, we haven't checked any of those things yet. It's incredible. That's brilliant. And a question for you. Those ranges, these generic Homer Simpson ranges, where did they come from? Like, why? And it's not that people shouldn't trust those ranges. It's not what I'm saying here. But why were those ranges designed if they're not a great way of... I have my own... I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you to explain this to me. Where do those ranges come from? Your testosterone range, your cholesterol range, whatever the range is. Why do they exist?
So this is the thing. Those ranges, and every range from every lab company, has come from the masses. So when you test someone that has a problem, when they go above a certain range, they have a problem, that's where they get the ranges from. These ranges are sick ranges. They are not optimal ranges. Now, my friend Brian Walsh, these are, when you're out of range, you're categorically sick. But I want to know if I'm in a trajectory. So a few years ago, I got a job from a client to go to the Beacon and assess their health check and give criticism on it. And my biggest criticism of it was that it is going in to identify disease. So when you leave that, they say you don't have disease markers, you're not above the ranges. Well, I'm not interested if I don't have above the ranges. I'm interested in what trajectory I'm going in. And the more regular checkpoints you have along your blood chemistry or whatever sort of testing you're doing, then you can see how things are moving. So more regular blood analysis, more regular hormone testing will tell you what direction you're moving in.
Context.
There you go. So I want to see, well, I'm here now. Well, where was I last year? Or where was I the year before? Or where was I 6 months beforehand? And that can give me, a direction, a pathway on where I need to optimize certain things. And in conjunction with a physical exam, in conjunction with signs and symptoms, in conjunction with a proper interview. And that's when you'll find out what's going on. Because if your testosterone is 10, but you're looking to have kids and you found your mood is down low, your muscle mass is down, your body composition has changed, hair loss, whatever it may be, I can start to put this together in a plan for you. But, taking one picture of the Grand Prix, it's not going to tell you who's going to win. Yeah. It just doesn't happen. Yeah. And if you're going in looking for disease, you don't find disease, that's not the end of the road, So, and as I say to people all the time, one sweet doesn't give you a cavity. So we need to see what's happening on the whole road. And the more we can look back and we can compare where you were before and where you are moving forward and listen to people. But doctors go in looking at labs. They don't necessarily have the time or the inclination maybe to sit down with people and say, well, how are you feeling? What's going on? And has anything changed? Has anything improved? Whatever it is. So for me, when it comes to hormonal health, it could be hormones, it could be neurotransmitters, it could be digestion, it could be a bit of a mineral deficiency, but regular checks keeps me finding out where things are going moving forward. And I actually have a client, she just texted me, she's got a thyroid problem and we've been dealing with it from a nutrition and lifestyle point of view, but I'm going to see her tomorrow. I've got 2 years on how our TSH and how our blood is going, and it's brilliant because when we make an intervention we can really see things changing. So I think people are taking much more impact in their own health. They're getting kits sent to their houses now, they're getting things tested so they can see how things are going. But it's not that it's a minefield, but as you said, it's in this world, it's inconvenient to be healthy. You need to take control of your health yourself. You can't wait for a doctor to do that. A doctor is there from a when something's going wrong. They're not necessarily there from a preventative point of view, and they don't have the time to do that. But you need to take control of that. And if you think it's expensive to be healthy, try being sick. It's more expensive, that's for sure.
That's a great way of looking at it, actually. Yeah. And to borrow a phrase from you, which I don't know if you borrowed from someone else, but the absence of disease does not indicate the presence of health. Just because you are not sick doesn't mean you have to wait to be sick to do something about your health. That made such an impact on me when you said it, because I think about that, but it's such a simple way to think about it. Just because you're not sick doesn't mean you're healthy. Yeah,
that guy was Jeffrey S. Bland. He's one of the fathers of functional medicine, and that's the thing. And you were talking in your podcast about people going out swimming and doing walking, and sometimes in Ireland there's a little bit of begrudgery going on and stuff like that. And even people only take, for example, I can walk into any gym in Ireland and I can see who has been injured and who's not been injured, because the guys that were injured are in the room doing foam rolling and trigger point work because they take their body seriously. It's the guys that are 22 that are bulletproof, that are walking in and out the gym forward, jumping to the chin-up bar. What are you doing, right? So But the same thing is that people will embrace that stuff when they've tried it, when they've done other things. And with time comes wisdom. I get that. And sometimes, but there's a lot of people, naysayers, and say not to do these things. But take your health seriously. Look after yourself, for not only for you, but for your kids, for your family, for your parents who you're around. And then and I do find that I preach a bit, you know. And we were talking with your mother and your father. If they've ever changed your nappy, they're never going to listen to you. So anytime someone wants advice, my parents want advice, I generally refer them on to some of the staff because they just won't listen to me. Same with brothers and sisters, they tend not to listen to you. You could be an expert and they still wouldn't listen to you. So I think people need to, and we talk about this, the Simon Sinek, the why. And sometimes I'm not being sexist. I've seen the most motivated people in the world were women trying to become pregnant or getting in shape for a wedding. And I know that is sexist, and I apologise for that. But when you have a why, when you have a focus, when athletes are like going, if I get this weight down, I can fight. When I can get my body composition or fitness up, I get this contract. I had a guy, he's a goalkeeper, and he came to see me, and he was finishing up from this Premiership soccer team, and he thought that was going to be it. And he said, you know what, Owen's going to give it one blast go, and do loads of trials. His agent got a lot of trials from, so we trained, we did a very intensive 12-week block in Malahide, and then he ended up getting a job for Crystal Palace. So when you have that goal, that focus, that this is my last chance, people are really motivated.
Yeah.
But please don't wait till that has to happen. Please don't wait till you have a stroke and a heart attack. And my dad, a number of years ago now, I think 16 years ago now, he took a stroke. And it's funny that you talk about people buying materialistic things. He would never, we had a lot of kids when he was very young. Actually, he got married when he was 18. My mum was 19. Like, when I was 18, I was a gobshite. I'm still a gobshite, but at 18, you don't know your arse from your elbow. So I can't imagine that. But he gets married and he works really hard, and he went back to college to do his leaving cert because he left school early. And then he went on. Actually, he didn't work far from here. Does John know what Siemens is?
Yeah.
Siemens used to be a glass blown company from.
I heard that already. Yeah.
So he worked there for years, very unique job. And then all his life he wanted to buy a Mercedes. He wanted to buy a Mercedes. So he buys a Mercedes. I think it was, again, 15, 16 years ago. You know, he only had it a couple of months. He takes a stroke in the car and crashes it. And then he never drives again. He has to stop working. So, and that's sad. It's sad for me to say that for my dad. But is that what you want? No, he's still alive, and my dad's still good. But he's affected. He's affected on his left side. He's affected emotionally and from his mental health point of view. He's switched on, don't get me wrong, but he's not the same. He's physically impaired, and he does have some remnants of a brain injury. But why wait for that to happen? No, he wasn't. He was a fit enough man, but he did smoke, he did drink, and there was a bit of genetic component to that. But genetics load the gun, but the environment pulled the trigger. And when it comes to epigenetics, and when it comes to phenotypes and mutations, and we could talk about a lot about this, and particularly with mental health, Irish people, there is categorically, I'm not making this up, there are categorically gene mutations in the Irish population that predispose us to alcoholism, substance abuse, OCD, bipolar, schizophrenia, and depression. 100%. And this is done by DIT. 46% of Irish people have these gene mutations, and it means that it increases our likelihood. Not that we're going to get it. We're not saying having a gene doesn't mean you're going to get something. It just increases your potential or the possibility of you getting it if your environment, your lifestyle, your trauma all sets the stage. So actually the gene is called MTHFR, methyl tetrahydrofolate, and what it does is there's an enzyme in our body that brings folic acid or B9 into its usable form. It's called 5-tetrahydrofolate reductase. It's an enzyme, and some Irish people don't have that gene to make that enzyme into optimal levels, and we get methylation problems. Cleft palates, spina bifida. You've heard that before. People can folic acid, but also can interfere with detoxification, mental health, bipolar, alcoholism. Which, I shouldn't know as many alcoholics in my family or in my gene pool. I shouldn't know that. But when I talk to other people, it's the same thing. And sometimes stress management and people managing stress. Maybe back in the day that was their go-to, or it was a workaholic or whatever it was. But we do have, and it's a strong component in the Irish population of these gene mutations. They're called SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms, which is a small little change in the gene. It's like what I say to people, like you open a book. So imagine inside your cells, we have this library. Let's say Trinity Library. It's like a big book. And we open it and we read one word on one page and one paragraph. And that says, make a sperm cell or make a liver cell. And the word is spelled wrong. All it is we read that word wrong, and that DNA sequence is a little bit faulty, and then we're lactose intolerant or we are asthmatic. So it increases the possibility. But some of these genes are strongly related to mental health and to other issues. And there's a lot of stuff that we can do from an environmental point of view, or what we call epigenetic point of view, from a nutrition, from a lifestyle, from a sleep, from a hydration, to support that.
Well, just going to pop in here to give the brain cells a break and remind you that today's guest is performance consultant Eoin Lacey. And we're talking health, hormones, happiness, and building strong, robust human beings. Also, Eoin is constantly running a range of fantastic webinars, seminars, and courses for coaches, practitioners, and the general public. His next course this weekend, at the time of release of this podcast, is a modified strongman training workshop for coaches, and I'll include a link in the show notes to that. But keep an eye on our Instagram page at PrimalPro, PRYMALPRO, for updates on future courses, and make sure to follow Eoin on Instagram at Eoin Lacey Education, as he releases regular information and IGTV videos on everything from hormonal health, fat loss, sleep, and much, much more. You can get the show notes from this episode over at www.primal.ie/Eoin Lacey Health. I think that's a really important point, because when you mentioned that chain there, I'm sure there's loads of people going, I knew it, I have that, I wear the t-shirt, and then score the points.
Yeah.
It's an excuse, really. But I love how you qualify that with the environment, the environmental factors. And it was something I was going to ask you about anyway, and you touched on it there, is this mental health. It's such a tricky area at the moment. The reason I say it's tricky is because I'm super passionate about it, because it affects everything you do in your life. If you don't feel good, nothing works in your life. So it is number one for you. In your head, if your health isn't good in your head, how you view the world, it affects everything. Yeah. So nothing else really matters if your mental health isn't good. But there's a mental health train at the moment, which is good because it's bringing attention to mental health, but it's a very, very easy kind of flag to wave for people who want to monetize their Instagram profile or their brand or whatever it is. So there's a fine line to walk here between just over talking about mental health, this phrase mental health. However, are you familiar with Dr. Mark Gordon? You probably are.
I don't know.
I heard Dr. Mark Gordon. I cannot remember the name of his foundation, but he is he's a doctor from the States, and he works very closely with vets with brain trauma.
Right.
And I'll apply this to the general population now in a second, but in terms of veterans coming home, a huge amount of, and I'm going to use inverted commas for PTSD, symptoms of suicidal ideation and depression and alcoholism, and a huge percentage of them going to jail and stuff like that for aggressive crimes. And a lot of them were being treated with kind of CBT and medication for PTSD. This general collection of symptoms because they were in the army and they saw horrible things and they were very stressed about it. So it was psychological trauma they were being treated for. And he took the other angle. No, this is a hormone issue and a neurotransmitter issue in the brain. This is a brain trauma issue. Kind of similar to the whole, what was the concussion, kind of traumatic brain injuries. And he started to talk a lot about, is it pregnenolone?
Yeah.
Brain health, TSH, the combination, and he started treating people from a lifestyle point of view. Now, lifestyle could mean hormone replacement, or could mean medication, or could mean diet, or could mean environmental changes and nutrition and stuff like that. And his stats were massive in terms of the amount of vets who stopped their medications, who reduced their symptoms, and who got back to normal, healthy lives. So I was really interested by this. So I was trying to apply this to kind of general population as well. And he's recently done an episode on Joe Rogan, so we just brought it back up in my mind there again. He was talking about this, and he has a vet on with him, and they talk about their foundation they've set up. And I think about a lot of people nowadays who suffer with mental health, and most people that I know personally who have suffered with their mental health, their lifestyles are awful. Now, chicken or egg, they think, well, I'm not feeling good, so my lifestyle isn't good, so it's this vicious circle. But the intervention usually is something like a medication or a therapy, which are fine and have their places, and I suppose they're tools. But I am convinced that a huge amount of people who are not feeling good, you don't have to have a mental health condition or be diagnosed with depression or anxiety, whatever the diagnosis is, if they followed some of the steps that you've outlined there from not just a hormonal point of view, I know hormones are big, but from a general lifestyle and environment point of view, that could be the answer. And the question I have for you is, if we're looking at things like SSRIs, I don't want to get too deep in it, but I know in a lot of cases some of the medications and things that you take could actually end up undermining a lot of the natural systems that we have, the hormones, the brain transmitters, which could actually be worse in the long term. Is that something that's common?
Really common. And this is the thing when it comes to mental health. There's a whole continuum. So anxiety, depression, and bipolar. There's a multitude of issues. And again, I'm not a physician, so I'm not recommending not to take medication.
Oh, of course.
But what I would say is it needs to be a personalised plan. So maybe someone might not get their thyroid checked. Thyroid and testosterone for people with mental health issues is massive. And anxiety is huge now, where people can't calm down from situations and they get overwhelmed with stuff. So in our body, we have our autonomic and our sympathetic autonomic nervous system made up of a sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And when we don't have balance with that, when we get excited or we get wound up, we can't calm ourselves back down again and we get overwhelmed. So from a nutritional point of view, from a hormonal point of view, it's pivotal. And even the neurotransmitters, if you're taking something like a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor to balance yourself down, there is an imbalance there. So there's some really good experts, Dr. Eric Braverman, Dr. Doris Karazian. They have some really good content of what we can do. But one of the things I'd say to people is, by taking a medication, it will definitely help. They've been shown every medication on this planet has side effects. That's why the list comes in. Yeah. I actually spoke to my mom recently, and my auntie has this infection in her mouth, and she was given this medication, and the medication is 1 in 10. The side effect of 1 in 10. That's a huge amount. 4 A4 pages that she sent my mom saying these are side effects. Whoa. But every medication has a side effect. Now, the reason why most drugs will have a side effect, not always, but the reason is, if I give you a drug, the drug does its job, it goes into the cell, comes out of the cell, and then it's done its job inside the cell, and then it gets removed. When it gets removed, as I said, like the estrogen, it has to be bound with a vitamin and mineral, or maybe an amino acid, to get rid of it. But it takes that vitamin and mineral out. And when we have depletion of those vitamins and minerals and amino acids, that depletion or insufficiency will cause a symptom in the body. So, for example, women that are taking the contraceptive pill, as we said, or even Lipitor, they really deplete CoQ10 and really deplete B vitamins from the body, which can bring down mood and energy and irritability and so on. So there's a side effect to every medication, but a medication to solve a mental issue, I think, is definitely needed for a lot of people in conjunction with nutrition, hormonal testing, neurotransmitter testing, psychotherapy, CBT, whatever it is, in conjunction. But in my opinion, it's not a one fix all. And people out there, and this is the interesting thing about depression, some people have had resolution or depression management, because sometimes people don't even get out of it, they just manage it through many different things. Through exercise, through meditation, through mindfulness, through nutrition. So it's multifactorial as in the approach, but everyone is unique in its way. Is it a genetic polymorphism that had you predisposed to this? Maybe. Was it trauma in your life? Maybe. We don't have to say that. Actually, it's been shown that kids that are born in stressful environments, maybe the kids born during this time, that they have a default mode, that they hyperreact to certain situations because they were born in a high cortisol or high stress environment. Kids born in the famine, that their metabolisms are different because they were born in a different environment. So, not regardless of the cause, but when someone has depression or anxiety or bipolar or schizophrenia, medication is one definite tool to help in conjunction with nutrition and training. But you can't be drinking, you can't be smoking and doing drugs and thinking that I just take that pill, it fixes it. The same with people taking Lipitor for cholesterol. It doesn't undo it. The same way you can't go to the gym 3 times a week and then live this unhealthy lifestyle and think it counteracts. It doesn't. So not to say that medication isn't the course of treatment. I'm not saying that. I'm saying to really comprehensively and personally approach it, I would address all facets of health that have been strongly related to it. And thyroid and mental health, oh man, the correlation is massive. Testosterone and mental health, massive, Substance abuse. People having dopamine and serotonin issues because of poor sleep, and then they don't get enjoyment from stuff. It's massive, and I know, like, maybe it's just, hopefully it's not my circle, but a lot of friends of mine, they would do cocaine on a regular basis, and they have the super highs and super lows. So again, these things can, not that people are more inclined to do that, but again, it's the lifestyle impact and how it's affecting people's health.
And the unfortunate thing is, they tend to be the things you go for when you're not feeling good, to pick you back up. And I know, like, just in a different context, to make this not about drugs, you talked about coffee and cortisol or sleep before. If you're reaching for a coffee in the morning to combat the effects of being tired in the morning, that's just a band-aid, and you're going to actually make the problem worse and worse and worse and spoil the same. If you're taking cocaine to make you feel good because you don't feel good, you're drinking to drown the sorrows because you don't feel good. It's a vicious circle. And just to not necessarily make this about people who are suffering with depression. Like, I know a lot of people now who are, they're fine people. They live good, healthy, happy, relatively lives, but they're not feeling good and they're not happy. Like, it's a scalable thing. That is the same thing. It's the same conversation as someone who might have really serious mental health issues. a lot of people nowadays just don't feel good. This applies as well, because maybe you're not a 1 on the scale, but maybe you are a 7 and you're living and you're functional and you're getting on with it. You think you're fine, but maybe your motivation is slipping a little bit. Your mood's slipping. I'm getting older. I'm stressed. That's normal. You can be happier. And this is why I laughed. We talked about biohacking before. That's what the real biohacking for me is. It's understanding your body and doing things that make it's not necessarily using the latest tool or the latest medication, whatever that. It's understanding there's a huge percentage. Like, what was that movie with Bradley Cooper? Was it Limitless?
Limitless, yeah.
That excites me so much, the potential of your brain, not necessarily taking a drug to do it, the potential that we have that we haven't tapped into yet. That if you understand, this is why I get really passionate about this. I can start to understand stuff now by listening to you. I'm like, I could do that in my life, and I could be a little bit better or stronger or faster or healthier or happier. And then I do it and I feel, I'm like, oh my God. Well, I wasn't depressed before, but geez, I'm feeling really good now. Life is better.
But this is the thing. We've all had those days where, wow, like how this root band and you see a HRV. But there's days you wake up and go, man, I feel good today.
Yeah.
But my question to the people out there that wake up that do feel good, that didn't happen by accident.
No.
Why did that happen? Maybe it's because of Wednesday. Maybe because the weekend has run off your body, the alcohol and the bad food and the takeaways. Monday, Tuesday you train. Wednesday you had good food, you feel amazing. Thursday you feel amazing. Oh shit, it's Friday. So you have this sort of up and down effect. So we can do it. We can. And if you've had good days, please continue to do what you've had the good days. And people say to me, Owen, I've been good. I've been clean on my nutrition and no alcohol and so on. And then I had a drink. I felt like shit. Well, now you feel like shit because you're coming from 10 back down to 3 again. Where if you're at 3 or 5, you're not seeing a big drop down, you know? So I think people, like, I don't want to be preaching to people, but you can do it. And it's simple things. It's simple things every day to do to enhance your health. But you have to be motivated and focused to do it. And you need to do it.
Yeah.
And I say to people, in life, we have these, what we call it, 2 functional medicine questions. What can I add to this person's life to enhance their health? And what can I take away? And for me, sometimes it's sleep, sometimes it could be gluten, sometimes it could be lactose. Lady recently in Belfast, she's done every single diet under the world. And I said, you know, you're histamine intolerant. She's like, what? So histamine intolerance? She looks it up and she comes back, you absolute fecker. You can't, no one ever told me about it before. And then off on a low histamine diet, because histamine food is quite good food. And she's on low histamine and she feels so much better. Her skin used to break out all the time and she's like going, oh my God, why did I not know this before? I've done every single diet under the world. But the fact is, we can enhance our health, and it's different answers for different people. But every person listening on this podcast now, there's something that you're doing, you know it, that you shouldn't be doing. And we have this sort of, we call it the bridging model. So you're sitting in front of me and I say, Dan, what could you take out of your diet, your life, to enhance your health? Now, I don't know what you do on a day-to-day basis and whatever it is, but you could say, yeah, I could probably stop doing that. That you're definitely right there. You know, and everyone knows on the phone, and then or on the podcast. And then for me, I don't want to necessarily tell someone what to do. If I say to you, what do you think you should take out? Well, maybe I shouldn't have 6 joints every night, or whatever it is, right? Go back down to 5, all right? And so that's one thing. And then I see, what could you add in to enhance your health? I probably should get to bed by 11 o'clock every night. I'm sitting here, I haven't said anything. You've assessed your life, because you know it better than I will ever know it, and you've put in an intervention that you've decided. So now I say to you, okay, well, let's do that for a week and come back and we'll chat about nutrition, training, whatever. Come back in a week's time. Oh, I feel amazing. Wow. Well, what can we do now to get you up to higher and higher? And then I can start to educate and coach. But when somebody makes the decision themselves, that's game changing.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. And I know you won't mind me saying this now. My dad made a decision last year to change. He didn't have a bad lifestyle at all.
No.
But to enhance his health. My God. Absolute. It's inspiring to see. He's my dad, I know it saves inspiring, but absolutely inspiring. He spoke with you. He made decisions himself. He implemented those things. He was so focused on it. And then he started to feel better. When he started to feel better, he was even more focused. Now he's in control. He's empowered. He understands it. He understands his food. Not that he didn't before, but he understands himself, and he has the reins and he's in control. And it's incredible to see him do that. I've had my own experience with that, but when you see someone who's close to you do that, it's inspiring. It's incredible to see it. And he spoke with you and had a conversation, and he took everything he needed from that conversation and he implemented it. I didn't see you around the house cooking food for him. I didn't see you standing over and making him do his push-ups or get out and go for
I was out in the endless pool.
But it's incredible when you see it can be done. Yeah. It can be done by everybody.
And on that note, that we were just talking before the podcast switched on, and sometimes as we're talking, some people might go, "Oh, that gobshite, he's talking about this and that, and it's too much stuff."
Yeah.
When I'm talking to Dan now, we're talking about random topics. I wouldn't talk to this with clients. So
Of course,
when you sit down with someone, you have to meet them where they're at. And this is the thing, and I can't stress this enough, that any coach out there, any nutritionist out there, it's not about you. It's not about you. Your client will leave the room probably remembering 10% of what you said. So it's not about you. It's about empowering them, giving them their time, their focus, their concentration. That's why when I do a consultation with people, I mirror and match what they want, and I try to facilitate as much as I can, but I want to build a plan. By me just giving them a diet or just giving them an exercise program, I know that's not going to work. I need to instill in them, I need them to make the decision so they feel empowered is what they're doing is enhancing them. They're not doing it for me. If every time you go to the fridge and you don't eat the crunchy bar in the fridge because Owen said not to eat it, that's not going to stop you. It might stop you the first 10 times, but then it won't. But if it's not in the fridge, if the food is in the fridge for success, when you open the fridge, you see your breakfast, lunch and dinner, when I help you make those decisions for yourself, that's what has big impact. So coaching and clinic work is about empowering the client, making them the most important person. Listen to them. For God's sake, guys, listen to your clients, listen to your patients, see what they want and support and facilitate them, but don't think that they're going to leave they know everything, because they don't. You are probably listening now going, what was that, MTHFR gene? You know, the tetrahydrofolate reductase, yeah? So it can be confusing, but you want to give them enough so they can, you want to give them a tool and show them how to use it. And then bit by bit, add the tools. But don't have them leave them with 15 tools, and it just overwhelms them.
Yeah, and I'll just mirror that from the patient and the client point of view. That's the me and everybody else listening out there who's not a coach. It is about you. Yeah. So don't be afraid to be in, because I've had the privilege of seeing you work with clients, seeing Dr. Sam work with clients, and see people who really understand the communication and relationship side of this doctor practitioner relationship with a client. When you're in there as a patient, don't be afraid to own it. Like, it is about you. Obviously, you're there because you respect the information, you respect the guidance you're getting from whoever it is, but like, it's so much more beneficial to you if you're there to understand, engage with it's your process. Engage with the process. That person sitting there wants to help you, but they can't help you unless you want to help. It's a cliche, unless you want to help yourself. But don't be afraid to be engaged in that process. Read around it. Say, Owen, look, I read about this thing. What do you think? Don't be embarrassed to say that, because Owen's going to tell you, well, look, maybe I wouldn't do this. Oh, that's great information. It's great that you're interested and engaged in this yourself. And then I'm going to go, yeah, that is great. Fuck on me. And then I'm going to go home and say, I'll fuck out the crunchies. Yeah. My why shouldn't, you mentioned the why a lot. What's your why? My why shouldn't be because Owen said so. My why should be because that crunchy's not good for me, because now I understand it. Yeah. And I can and now I feel good about it. And if I want a crunchy, I'll have a crunchy, but I'm not going to have it in the house.
And what I would say is, when it comes to functional medicine, which is part of what I do, the functional medicine approach is the patient-centered approach. So it's all about the patient. Now, as much as I'd like to take credit for your dad's success, it had very little got to do with me.
I'm not giving it to you. I'm giving it to you.
But that's exactly it. People empower themselves. Yeah. People motivate themselves. With your dad that came in, all I did was a bit of direction, but he walked a walk, and that's it. So when you go to a physician, don't say, oh, my doctor, he gave me the medication, I'm not feeling better. You need to own it. And I say to people understand it. Like, if you were only given one car, the first car I bought, I was actually quite old, I was 24, I bought it off John Connor from the gym. It was a Volkswagen Golf. If I only ever had that car for the rest of my life, man, I'd look after that like nothing on earth. But people think that they can damage their body in their 20s and 30s and overtrain and drink and not sleep and have kids and think the car is going to still be running at the end of the day. It's not. So we need to focus on looking after ourselves on a daily basis. Don't wait till you're at the side of the road broken down, irreparable, before you do something. So there's stuff that we can do, but you need to do it. It's not the physician, it's not your therapist, it's you.
Yeah. This might seem like a bunch of random topics, but it's actually transitioning lovely down the road we want to go next. So
I know.
You've done this before. Yeah. So the kind of the other side of this, which links in with so many of the things you've already said, is I have a personal fascination with this whole developing a robust human being, and kind of linked in with what we said about creating this environment for yourself where you can resist all these different distractions and limitations and disease and all. You can fight it all off. And I had a funny thought once about being like a grizzly bear with a pair of glasses on. So you have your glasses on and you're very caring and you're kind of cognizant of what's going on and you're learning, you're expanding your mind, you're in control. But as soon as something comes to challenge you or your family, you're in grizzly mode. You whip off the glasses and you're physically able to handle it, if that's a disease or a virus or an illness or someone trying to mug you on the street. And it's a combination of that makes up, for me in my head, a robust human being. And to break that down to its constituent parts, what do you need to be a robust human being? You need to be healthy. What does that mean? We've talked about lots of different ways where you could be healthy. From a physical point of view, I've always had this thing in my head, and we actually discussed it earlier on today, about people who are super elite performers. they're not necessarily healthy, but they're the people that most of us look at and, oh my God, look at that guy, he's after running an ultramarathon, for example. Jeez, he must be super healthy, super fit. He's definitely super fit, but does that make him super healthy? Or a bodybuilder, someone in peak aesthetic condition, huge muscles, chiseled abs, all the bits and bobs going on. You look, wow, it was like Adonis up, there's like a Greek god up there. He must be super healthy. I know from experience, from working with a lot of these people, and obviously you've worked with many, many super elite performers, generally, they're not actually that healthy, because to get yourself to that kind of extreme of physical conditioning, it's a huge drain on your body. Like pregnancy is a huge drain on your body. Illness is a huge drain on your body. Pushing yourself to any sort of extreme and applying constant chronic stress to get there is a strain on your body. And then I started to look at guys like Ross Edgley, for example. He's just one I've just been reading a lot of his books. I like his philosophy and his concepts, and I know he's kind of a social influencer figure. When you dig down, there's actually a lot of depth there, and he's done some outrageous feats of endurance and strength and stuff like that. And his kind of his ethos on this, he drew from a lot of different training kind of principles around the world, is to have a body that's healthy, that's not deficient in anything that it needs to do its job, and then to look at all of are you trained for the thing that you're going to be doing? And for most of us, I'm never going to go, well, you never know, but I'm never going to go to the Olympics.
Right.
I'm not looking to break PBs. I play a bit of sport, but I'm not looking to achieve these pinnacles. I just want to make sure my body is as strong, as healthy, and as fit as possible for as long as possible. So when I'm 80, I can still play with the grandkids, touch wood, and I can do all that kind of stuff. So you mentioned something to me before. This phrase, general physical preparedness, I like. Yeah. That's only a small part of your kind of whole world of strength and conditioning and building this robust body. But when you think about helping somebody to create this body that's resilient, we've talked a lot about the kind of physiological kind of stuff and hormones and neurotransmitters and all that kind of stuff. But from a physical point of view, what does that look like to you? Somebody who is well designed for life, for the physical trauma of life, I suppose. Might play a bit of sport, just wants to play with the kids, wants to be fit and healthy, wants to look good. Let's be fair, we all want to look good. What is that process like to you?
Right, so this is I'm going to try and explain this in the simplest way I can. When you're an athlete, your fitness, your strength is specific to your sport. 100%. So powerlifters are only good squat, bench and deadlift. I doubt you see any powerlifter hanging from a chin-up bar or doing a muscle-up. It's not going to happen. If you get a guy who can do a cross-country run or a marathon, he's very efficient at his aerobic capacity for the running mechanics that are involved in the sport. So that's why CrossFit, I think, got a real good pick-up by people, because it's fitness across a multitude of sports. Olympic lifting, powerlifting, fitness, triathlons and swimming and gymnastic movement. So that to me is where people really start to gravitate towards it. So to answer your question, it's been shown that people that maintain muscle mass for latter parts of their life stay healthy for longer. Now, am I saying that muscle mass dictates how well you age, your cognition, your immune system, and so on? No. But what I'm saying is, to maintain muscle mass, you need to live a certain life. You need to be eating proper food, otherwise you lose your muscle mass. You need to be digesting food well, otherwise you won't have enough amino acids and so on. All your detoxification soldiers and all your immune soldiers are protein based. So if someone is maintaining muscle mass, 1, they're training on a regular basis, 2, their digestion is well, 3, their immune system is functioning well, and they're detoxifying. Also, when you have under a lot of stress, you have part of your brain called your hippocampus, and your hippocampus is a part of your brain that has the most amount of neural growth. It has the most amount of what's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's for fertilizer for your brain. It keeps you switched on, cognitive function, and you can manage stress well. However, with chronic stress, you have what's called hippocampal atrophy, and that will go down. Chronic stress breaks muscle mass down. You know, anyone that gets sick or anyone that gets injured, their muscle mass goes straight down. So for me, when it comes to exercise for a robust body, it's about maintaining muscle mass, and it's about doing movements that are functional in your life. Now, handstand press up isn't in my arsenal, right? I do end up my hand on my head when I'm doing jiu-jitsu, maybe every now and again, but you need to be fit for what it entails in your life. So when it comes to functional training, and I have a big issue when it comes to people talking about functional training by saying lunges and squats and chin-ups are all functional. Not necessarily. Anything that improves the function of the body is functional training. If I have a Paralympic athlete that has cerebral palsy, or I have a guy that has a double lung transplant, if I get them getting up and down the chair better, if I get them, opening the car door or walking or running or driving the car better, that's functional for them. For example, I had guys that have major inabilities. So, for example, the fear of falling. You've seen these old ladies and old men walking around the village and they're looking down at their feet and they have that kyphosis and that dowager's hump and where the actual spine calcifies because it's so stretched. They're looking down the ground because they want to see where they're stepping so they don't fall over. When someone above the age of 66 falls, the chance of them breaking a second or third bone is massively increased because they try to break their fall. So for me, I identify what people need to do in their life to increase as much muscle mass specific to the optimal weight and to their body composition for them to do it. But aerobic exercise, and this is where I differ. We have, to make it simply, we have two major categories of muscle fibers: slow twitch and fast twitch, and there's subdivisions in each. But when you do aerobic exercise, your major focus is slow twitch muscle fibers, which is for long distance running and so on. But with aerobic exercise, you need more volume. And we call it the FIT principle. You need to do it quite often. The intensity can't be that high because you want to activate slow twitch muscle fibers. The time you do it needs to be quite long. You're talking maybe 60 minutes. And then the type of exercise is running or biking or so on. That's very good for activating those muscle fibers. But that wears the body down. That wears the volume down. That's repetitive on the knee and the ankle and the lower back. And right now you can get away with that. But if you were to increase the intensity and bring down the duration, you would not only get adaptations and slow twitch muscle fibers, but fast twitch muscle fibers. So what's been shown is in research that if you do interval training, you increase fast twitch muscle fibers and slow twitch muscle fibers. But if you do slow steady state running, you only activate slow twitch muscle fibers. So your adaptation is there. And I prefer someone to be able to run a 5K fast than run a marathon slow. I prefer someone that would be able to sprint, 500 meters than to be able to, jog 10K. So the adaptation, both from a mechanical point of view, from a hormonal point of view, it's less wearing on the body. So the most robust body, and we have what's called the physical qualities. So when an athlete comes to me or anybody comes to me, we have a hierarchy. We need them to have coordination. We need them to have balance. We need to have a certain amount of agility. We need them to have a certain amount of endurance. Endurance for what? Strength. And we need a certain amount of explosive strength for certain people. But functional strength is being able to move and walk and do all the activities you need to do. But for me, that's resistance training, that's HIIT training or interval training specific for that person with like cardiovascular training. The day you stop doing cardiovascular training is the day you die. And too many people focus purely on that from a fitness point of view. But fitness, I'm going to say these three sentences, and any strength coach out there, please listen to these. Fitness is muscle specific. So what I mean by that is, if you're fit to bike, it doesn't mean you're fit to run. If you're fit to box, it doesn't mean you're fit to cycle or to row. It's very muscle specific. Second to that, fitness is fiber type specific. What I mean by that is you might be fit to do a long distance run but not fit to sprint. It's different muscle fiber activation altogether. And the last thing, which I was talking to Adam about yesterday, fitness is muscle contraction specific. And what I mean by that is I can box all day but I couldn't necessarily wrestle. So when you hold someone isometrically, it's a different sort of fatigue status. And that's why when you're growing older, I think you should adapt your body for all the challenges that might come your way. I think body weight training is very good. I think working on mobility is very good. Posture is essential. So posture, agility, certain muscle mass and body composition. Try to maintain a lower body fat percentage because fat cells can, as we said, can lower testosterone, can increase inflammation, cause a whole heap of other issues. So for me, the best body shape will be someone that's doing resistance training 2 to 3 times a week, doing interval training 2 to 3 times a week, and maybe having an active life, going for hikes, going for walks, maybe going for some swimming, which is nice for the joints, and being active. That to me will be someone that can age, can slow down aging substantially, not only from a hormonal point of view, from a growth hormone point of view, but muscle mass, particularly fast twitch muscle fibers, has a much more positive impact on your hormonal profile.
I find this very interesting because what I see very commonly is, and I don't like saying your average person, because what is your average person? But a lot of people who aren't necessarily involved in a sport or have a sporting background, it's go for the walk. And go for the walk is great. Or go do my 5K at a nice jog pace. And that's great. It's fantastic. Like, it is an element that you can use. But that's their technique or their plan, their long-term plan. That's how I'm going to stay fit. What I like about that explanation there is, because I love resistance training, love the principles behind it, the idea behind it. A lot of people, it's an intimidating thing, because immediately what do you picture? I'm under the bar at the gym. Yeah. I'm doing bicep curls with all these huge lads around. And if you're a female or even a man who has no experience with sport, that's a very, very intimidating picture. resistance training or this old one of I'm going to build too much muscle.
Yeah.
Jesus.
It's not going to happen.
It's a hard thing to do is to build muscle.
No, and this is the thing. It's not going to happen. That thing I get all the time. It is very, very, very slow to put on real muscle mass, and it's very difficult. So as you get older, it's even less likely for it to happen. That's why so many people abuse steroids. So for me, resistance training is, and this is the thing. The language you use, maintaining muscle mass and activating slow twitch fast twitch muscle fibers is anti-aging. It's healthy to your joints. It's regenerative. It increases collagen, elasticity in the skin. You enhance health by doing resistance training. Now, does that have to be dumbbells, barbells? It could be TRXs, it could be body weight, it could be anything. But it doesn't have the same negative connotations long term as high volume, excessively aerobic exercise does. Excessive aerobic exercise increases oxidative stress in the body. Excessive aerobic exercise will decrease blood flow to the digestive system and can increase gut permeability, increase food allergies, bring down the immune system, and cause a lot of issues. A lot of people have tested, like Timothy Noakes, the doctor, the lower running. A lot of guys have, subclinical insulin issues, but they get by with it because they're doing so much aerobic exercise. When they stop doing the aerobic exercise, all of a sudden these metabolic imbalances come about. So one of the things that I like, when you do resistance training, your body becomes very efficient from a metabolic point of view. And we have this process called metabolic flexibility. And to go back to the car analysis, when you imagine you had a hybrid car, you go from electric to petrol, electric to petrol. When you do resistance training, you enhance that. You enhance the body's ability to. So as you said, that the grizzly bear with the glasses on. The biggest issue when it comes to hormones is that people can't switch. So we have this again, I'm going back to genetic polymorphisms. We have what's called a COMT gene, the catecholamine O-metal transferase. So for example, some people, when they get stressed out, they can't calm back down again. But imagine if I was to stress you and relax and stress and relax and stress and relax in the gym. How do you get comfortable with that?
Yeah.
And we have this fight or flight response. We hear it all before. We have fight or flight and then we freeze. But that's not what really happens. We have fight or flight, which doesn't really happen anymore. We have that freeze, which we're not in the situation. But we also have what's called tend and befriend. We're always managing stuff, so we're always at a high level of stress. So by doing resistance training, it has shown categorically that we manage stress from an emotional and a psychological standpoint much better, because we're lifting weights, we're stopping, we're stressing, we're stopping. So our body becomes flexible and resilient to it. So when we are in a stress environment, take that stress on, deal with it, and jog on. Where other people, they don't have that outlet, they don't have that resilience in their hormonal system to be able to manage that. So resistance training is stressing something, adapting to the stress and moving on. But if you don't have that ability or that hormonal flexibility or hormonal fitness, don't be surprised if your body's wearing down. So for me, and again, I'm a gym guy, so I'm gonna say that, but no matter what it is resistance training, yoga and Tai Chi, Pilates and mindfulness definitely, I think, have a component in this if you want to call it, plan for people. But resistance training and interval training over long steady state cardio to build and sustain a healthy life and anti-aging moving forward has much more positives and less negatives than aerobic exercise.
That's going to be a really interesting thing for people to hear, specifically about the aerobic exercise. It's not necessarily the best thing. It's not a bad thing for you, but it's another tool in your toolbox that you need to understand how it works.
I just briefly, I just thought of something there. I did a seminar. We, myself, John Kavanagh, Conor McGregor, and Ash Staley, and Kieran McGeeney. He was. He did a seminar once in the gym. So we were doing a seminar, and all these for a lot of people on building the best athlete, and we did all these presentations, and everyone spoke about their components, and I talked about aerobic exercise. So the room was packed, and I was talking about aerobic exercise and how it increases oxidative stress to the body. So it does cause stress to the body, and sometimes we can calm the stress down and move on. Also, high level carbohydrate intake causes inflammation to the body, and hopefully your body can adapt to it. So I explained to this lady that long-term aerobic exercise, and she just had a baby, she asked this question, and I said, by doing like a 90-minute run every single morning, and all you have is porridge and honey in the morning, every single morning, can be over time pro-inflammatory to the body, can cause downregulation of thyroid function, it causes leaky gut and so on. She stood up and she walked out.
Really?
Right? Out of the whole room. So we're all standing there doing this presentation. She stood up and walked out. And this is the thing. and I'll hand up in the air. We have this confidence bias. We've all heard this, where we see things and we say, okay, we see what we want to see from things and not other things. I will look at the research. I will talk to experts. I will do blood testing. I will see clients, and I will talk to trainers that have hundreds of clients, talk to hundreds of clients of mine that are coaches, and hear their feedback from clients. This isn't me pulling this out of my backside. This is evidence. This is evidence based, as everything I say is. So sometimes people go, well, my mother always said I should take cod liver oil and not fish oil. Cod liver oil has very low levels of EPA, DHA, very high levels of vitamin D in it. But it's not a bad fish oil, don't get me wrong. But it doesn't have the same DHA and EPA content. But some people say, well, my mother said. So try if you can to move with the times. And what I say to people is, what phone have you got now? And they're like, well, it's a brand new iPhone 12. Brilliant. So you move with the times, but no, they're still following nutritional advice that their mother and father gave them, or exercise habits that Jane Fonda gave them, or fucking Tybo. So you have to move with the times when it comes to stuff like this. And aerobic exercise has its place, you know, like the Kenneth Cooper really pushed aerobic exercise, but it's deleterious to your hormonal system, to your digestive system, if it's the only modality of exercise. If it's the only modality of exercise, it will over time wear your knees, wear your ankles, wear your lower back, you know, cause oxidative stress to the body, demineralization of your bones, and it will accelerate aging. We call them AGEs, advanced glycated end products. And the more oxidative stress you have in your body, the more rust you're putting on the body. And that car at the side of the road now has a lot of rust on it, as well as a few other issues.
Yeah. Just to bring it a little bit more focused on people, because I'm quite selfish on this podcast, people who are actually doing a little bit more than just longevity, who want to have some sort, not professional athletes again, because I know it's a totally different ball game, but people who are looking to actively train and to develop a body that's a little bit better than just staying alive and keeping healthy and staying long. They want to be able to apply this to maybe to play five-a-side, maybe play a bit of GAA, a bit of rugby, maybe do a lot of people doing MMA and jiu-jitsu nowadays, or they're going down bouldering, and they want to be able to do that consistently. They want to challenge themselves, perform well, so they're doing some sort of resistance training. Couple of questions in here. Number one, there's a very, very common trend at the moment with specifically younger men, I don't know, women are into it as well, and steroids, and the association in their head that if I'm big and muscular, I'm going to be good at all these different things. Like, you can insert anything there. I'm going to be good at getting women. I'm going to be good at lifting cars. I'm going to be good at playing rugby. Which, obviously, when we talk to you now in a second, we're going to know is not necessarily true at all. And then the second part of that question is, if we kind of address that side of things, what are the things, I'm going to ask about strongman training basically, what are the things that we can apply that are, and I know we don't like giving general recommendations, but it's a good platform for people to start building whatever they want at, as opposed to, right, I want to be good at rugby or bouldering or whatever, I'm going to go and build my bench, my squat, my deadlift. Well, maybe that doesn't necessarily apply. Maybe there's a better way of being starting your platform off and then deciding which way you want to go with it. So I'll ask you about the whole steroid issue at the start, and why you think that the issues with it, obviously number one, and why you think that is the kind of the mirage for people to say, okay, I need to get big and strong, huge biceps, and I'm going to be good at all these other different things.
Okay, so first of all, in my opinion, and I've talked about to professional bodybuilders about this, the reason why steroids are so popular is they work. I'm like, let's not lie about it. They 100% work. If you do a course of steroids, you will see increase in cross-sectional area, you increase muscle mass, you increase strength in the gym.
Loads of people just stop listening to the podcast.
That's it. Cool. That's all he said. He own said, no. So the fact is that they do work.
Yeah.
But for me, it's artificial, because if it's fast got, it's fast lost.
Yeah.
So I've seen, and you've seen, and people out there listen, have seen guys in the gym that when they come off their cycle or whatever it may be, is things drop down, and there's always a negative side effect. So one of the things when it comes to steroid abuse, that a lot of people are taking steroids, they're not taking them under medical supervision, they haven't got any lab testing, and then they're looking for super physiological levels, so that they're out of the optimal ranges. And
isn't that where the abuse comes in?
Well, that's what it is. But not only is the abuse that they're taking it from, you know, don't know where the black market, where they're getting them from, you don't know what else is in it, but it's not in conjunction, as I said about the tracer, we need them in ratio with one another. So then you hear people taking testosterone and then taking anti-estrogens because the conversion is going on. So there are a lot of issues that go on with that. For me, and I've never taken a steroid in my life, when it comes to putting on muscle mass, it's consistency. But a lot of people aren't doing the right things correctly. So for example, when you train, the more muscle mass you activate, the more anabolic hormone release you get. So if I go into the gym and all I do is calves or all I do is forearms, there is very little to any anabolic growth factors. There's no mechano growth factors, no human growth factors, no testosterone release from that. I go in and do a deadlift session. That's a serious hormone response. But when I look at people's training systems, it's bench and back and biceps and triceps and shoulders and maybe a bit of legs at the end. So they're not even optimizing their own hormonal output. So the short aspect of this is steroids work for a lot of people, but there is a massive negative side effect to it. They really interfere with mental health. There's a yo-yo up and down. They cause other hormonal collateral damage, estrogen issues, mental health issues, skin issues. So I strongly discourage any young person going down the steroid area. However, as you get older and maybe your steroids aren't optimal, optimizing your steroid levels or your testosterone levels in conjunction with a physician to back into normal ranges, not super physiological ranges, I think can be very positive. Jay Campbell has a number of books on testosterone replacement therapy and how you can use that for. But just taking steroids and Anavar and orals in general are very damaging towards the body. But you're not getting them from credible sources. So you're taking a drug. I think it lends itself down a very dodgy, dark, narrow field. And I know you've had Drew Hennessy on, and he would be an expert more so when it comes to that field than I have. But I tend to get people that I'm rebuilding them up after steroid abuse. I'm getting guys that have had big issues because of they've done stuff in the past and then they want to get healthy again. It is a quick fix, and I don't think I don't recommend it for anybody. However, using hormone replacement therapy for someone I do recommend at a certain stage of life if they have the medical lab ranges that may need it. But other guys, girls, I don't, and I see horrific, I see huge, and I see metabolic and hormonal and depressive issues for a very long time. Of a lot of males and females that look jacked, that look great, but they are in a very bad place both physically and emotionally. So I can't recommend that and wouldn't.
Yeah, that might seem strong to people, but I just want to echo what you said there, because I've also seen so many people, and it's really sad to think about. And like the things that really ping in my head, things like permanent infertility for young guys. Like I'm talking young 20s, permanent infertility. I didn't even know before I got into this that was a possibility. I knew there was issues, and everyone jokes about, oh, geez, you can't get it up anymore and all that kind of stuff. Permanent infertility, like maybe at 21, 22, you're not thinking about having a family, but at 28, 29, maybe you are, and it's not an option for you anymore. Mental health, suicidal ideation, living this life where you look like the golden boy on the outside, but you're a shell. I've seen so many people like this, and it's really, really sad. And I said to you before the podcast as well, Drew's head's going to explode here, but I have a huge amount of respect for Drew being completely candid and honest and open about that and his story and his struggles as well. But it's not the exception. That's the norm. Yeah. That's the rule almost when you go down that road. And the other point I wanted to make about this was, even when you get there and you are jacked, that's not necessarily, like we're going to talk about the strongman kind of thing now, and it's like it's not necessarily really applicable to anything. You look at it and it's nice to look at, and you look at Instagram, you see someone jacked, and I can't say that every time I see it I'm like, oh geez, it'd be nice to look like that, wouldn't it? But then you kind of think, why? What are you going to do with it? What's it for? Is it applicable to anything else? How hard is it to maintain that? What you have to do to get there? There's another way.
There is, and this is the thing. Lachlan Gannon is a good friend of mine, and Lucky's a big guy. And
big guy.
But the one thing about Lucky, he's an educated bodybuilder.
100%.
And unfortunately, when people, this is what we talked about, when people are online or influencers or giving out information, they're giving out information and not being truthful to the people that they're talking to. Like John Meadows also is a colleague of mine, and he would talk to assisted athletes and non-assisted athletes. And when you're a bodybuilder that's built their muscle on taking steroids, your training systems, your approach to nutrition and training is steroid orientated. And the natural athlete will not, and I can't say this strongly enough, a natural athlete will not respond the same way to a bodybuilder's program or a powerlifter's program that they come from the steroid world. You cannot handle that amount of volume. You cannot adapt to that. You cannot eat the same food. Taking steroids, your whole metabolic rate changes, your nutrient partitioning, your recovery, your glycogen replenishment. Like the programs are like 3 hours long. So it's very unique. So, and unfortunately, not that they're not educated, but they're not in the trenches day in, day out, dealing with natural athletes. And if they were, they probably wouldn't give the same programs that they're giving. So for me, if you're going to want to put on muscle mass, you need to learn it from someone that understands the science, understands the practice, but that it isn't clouded by bodybuilding, focused programs. I see people out there doing these real isolation movements. And when you take outside hormones into your body and then you activate it with like some sort of exercise, you're driving towards a muscle.
Super focused.
Yeah, because you have that hormone release. But when you have to cause that hormone release, you have to train a very different way. And that's why I see guys not doing enough legs. I see the program split not being structured. I see the program intensity not being structured. And this is what I would ask the guys out there. Have you a training program? Have you a system? Have you periodization? Are you recording your program? And most of the people will say, no. But they're still the same people considering taking steroids. Yeah. They're not doing the simple things that have been shown categorically through years. Follow a program, change your program every 2 to 4 weeks, have a different split, have a different focus, specialise in certain areas and complement it with nutrition and training. They're not doing those things that have been shown. And if you're not doing those, I don't think you should even go near even contemplating the use of steroids. Your question was about strongman training?
It's about strongman training because to not just have a negative to this.
Yeah.
Let's use me as an example. An average guy just want to train, want to be good at all these different things, play a bit of football, want to be fit and healthy, want to maybe look good and feel really good and be strong. It kind of describes a lot of people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who get into the whole steroid bodybuilding world, that's what we all want. We all want that. We're just being given different messages. Strongman training for me is something that keeps coming back up. You mentioned before, and a lot of people that I would now respect in terms of their approach to strength and conditioning talk about this type of training. And this is what really should be called functional training, because it's much more applicable to the things we want to do. What is strongman training for people who mightn't know, and how do you build that into a program for somebody, or why would you build that into a program?
Okay, so strongman training, this is, I worked with a guy in called Mark Filippi. He's a strongman competitor, and he was the likes of Bill Kazmaier and Magnus Magnuson back in the day. So if you remember those stupid cartoons or stupid circus acts where you see a strongman come out in a circus,
that's the big ball.
The big ball. That's initially where strongman events came from. Then what happens is they came into these events where guys would pull trucks and pull anchors and flip tires and all these really random feats of strength. So it actually came from the circus, and then it came into like an event type thing.
What's the squat where you take the bar from the ground? And
is it a bent squat?
Oh,
the bent press.
God.
It's ridiculous.
What's that?
So they're crazy movements. So what would happen then is start going into the strength and conditioning world. Now, when strongmen competitors, like these guys are massive, and again, these guys are assisted athletes. They're taking drugs 100%. They wouldn't necessarily be super fit. But the movement that they would do would be very different than what you do in the gym. So they would drag things, lift things, carry things, flip things, throw things, hold things. So it's a very unique level of strength than you would in the gym. So then what happened is people started to say, well, that flipping that tire, that looks very much like a deadlift. So people like S&C coaches start taking components of strongman training and putting it into their strength and conditioning programs or the fitness programs, and that's what we call applied or modified strongman training. A strongman training program is doing all events that from strongman, but pushing a sled, flipping a tire, walking with a super yoke, using battle ropes, carrying farmers walks, which is like big, long, heavy dumbbells. These are all movements that are replicating what strongman events are, and also what you do in the gym, but with movement. Movement with more movements that would be specific to sport. So, for example, when you build a person's body in a gym, and normally what happens in the gym, you go up and down and left and right and flex and extend. They're very straightforward movements or biomechanical movements in a gym. However, the goal from a strength and conditioning point of view is performance enhancement. There's only really 3 sports in the world that the gym correlates to enhance performance. 1 is Olympic lifting, because it's exactly what they do in the sport. 2 is powerlifting, because it's exactly what they do in the sport. And CrossFit, because the components of it are exactly what they do in the sport. But every other sport that they do strength and conditioning is only for the hope that is sport specific to the sport. Ian King, who wrote a lot of books, but one of the books on the transfer and strength training is that the only sport specific training you can do is a sport. Yeah. That's just, you can hang geese or you can put golf clubs onto cables. It will not 100% correlate to the sport. Yeah. So unless it's those 3 sports I mentioned, you're building a better body in the gym in the hope that it transfers to the pitch, to the cage, to the Gaelic pitch, to the tennis court, whatever it may be. Now, there is a period, and this is from Vladimir Sakovsky. Any strength coach out there has to have these books, The Science and Practice of Strength Training. He wrote the second edition with Bill Kramer, who was one of the leading researchers in the world. I was lucky enough to present with him in Ireland a few years ago. But the research is solid, that when you train someone in the gym, it takes we want to call it a learning curve or an adaptation phase of 2 to 6 weeks, 4 weeks being average, to get that strength from the gym into the sport. It's called the period of delayed transmutation. And as I said to Dan earlier on, it's like Dan getting into my car to drive it. He knows how to drive my car. It's an easy car to drive, but he just needs to refine it. So when you build someone's body fitter or stronger or more muscle mass, your receptors, they change position. Your proprioceptors change position. So sometimes gym strength doesn't mean field strength. And I'm sure you've hit guys on the Gaelic pitch going, geez, that fella's solid, never lifted a weight in his life. Yeah. He's just genetically and functionally strong. He can hold his balance well.
Usually farmers.
Yeah, usually farmers. But when you do strongman training and you push a sled, pushing the sled doesn't necessarily help your top end speed. But in rugby, when you take the first few steps, you're solid, you're switch on, you're engaged. Now, it's not that we're replicating the movements. That's not what the goal is. The goal is that you're developing strength, endurance, and coordination and physical skill in a movement that drags something, pushes something. And the period of getting that onto the pitch is nearly instantaneously. Now, it's not going to be straight away. But I have a fighter of mine, Chris Fields, he runs KF in Swords. Yeah. And one of the things he used to like is I used to kill him in strongman training. And what he said, when I know I can go through and endure that level of training, a fight is easy to me. And as a good friend of mine, he's an Argentinian rugby player, he said, train hard, battle easy. So if you train hard, you have that in the tank going, nothing that this fella's going to bring me is going to challenge me like Owen did. I had one guy once get sick. There was some maintenance going on and the apartment was upstairs in the gym, and he had toilets and washing machines down. So he put Phil Mulpeter's name is because I'm going to slag him. So Phil pushes this sled up, pushes it back up again, and then goes over and gets sick. Now this toilet was in the middle of a car park, obviously not connected to anything. But he pukes in it. And then Cottle Pendred, he puked many times. Just so I clarify that point, the reason why guys might get sick is when you push something in particular, it's concentric. And without having that controlled, 4 seconds down or whatever, you're eccentric, you get a buildup of lactate. And that lactic acid really puts a lot of pressure on the muscle. You get glycogen depletion, you get a lot of acidity in the body. So you're building up their tolerance to that level of demand. So, and particularly safety, and I can't stress this enough, weight training is very safe in general, but when you're pushing athletes to the level or to the ceiling of that overload, of that repetition that they may not get, the risk is higher. But with strongman training, if done correctly, like you push a sled, you'll fall down at the end. That's it, But sled work, tire flipping. I'm not a huge fan of tire flipping because a lot of people don't do it right, and they use a tractor tire. A tractor tire, guys, cannot be used for a tire flip. A tire needs to be at least 19 inches off the ground in order to flip it correctly. It needs to be a crane tire with the metal around it. A tractor tire is pointless. It just looks good. It doesn't serve the function. Logs, farmer's walks. Like a farmer's walk, for example. So when you pick up a farmer's walk, it's 2 long bars, looks like heavy dumbbells, you stand up and you run with them. I would never have someone do a farmer's walk that can't do a deadlift correctly. So there's certain applications. But if you can give someone a heavy farmer's walk, grip strength, core strength, glute activation, it's phenomenal. And Stu McGill, one of the leading researchers on low back health, actually tested a lot of strongman sports and found which one was the most damaging or potentially damaging towards the spine. And it's actually a stone lift. So have you ever seen them lifting stones?
Yeah, the stones,
you have to get very rounded.
Yeah, you're in a deep curled over it,
and they'll put
chalk or liquid chalk
on their forearms. So that's the most damaging movement you can do from a spinal point of view. But strongman training is the fun. Like we do it in the gym on Wednesdays and Sundays as a group training environment that started off with the staff just doing it and clients jumping in. Obviously, we're not doing it now, but strongman training is fun. It's done in a controlled manner. It's great, so I think it's definitely a way of conditioning, particularly team sports, particularly guys that are looking to enhance their fitness, but also to get it's a nice mix of muscle mass and cardiovascular fitness, and it's fun if you're sadistic and you like that sort of pain.
yeah and it's scalable as well. You don't have to go out straight away and be getting sick pushing your sled. I know most people who are comfortable with their 3 sets of 12 bicep curls are going, do you know what? Not going to get sick pushing me sled.
And it's funny because Darren, our physio from Artane, I spoke to him recently and he came down to train. He was in Australia, and he came back and he was with Mick, one of the other staff, and I was out in the car park training Chris, and they were leaving the gym. I was like, well, no. In just come, help Chris out. So Chris was there, Cottle Pender was there, and Chris was getting ready for a fight. So they jumped in, and he told me he said, oh, that was the worst session I've ever done in my life. And if done correctly, because you're not necessarily holding load on your spine, but you feel strong to move, you feel strong to run, you feel strong to jump, you feel strong to change direction, and you feel strong all over the body, where sometimes gym work is, and I don't want to put people down, but being a gym monkey, just being strong from up and down and left and right, that's not functional strength. So when you wrestle with somebody, and not that you're going to be wrestling with people, but having the joint summation, and when I call it joint summation, you're strong from your hand to your foot. So when you push a sled, you lock your arm out. Your arm, elbow, shoulder, core, glutes, knee, ankle are all communicating together. And that to me is overall body strength. And once it's done in a strength and conditioning manner, and it's periodized and it's symmetrical and it's balanced, it can lend itself phenomenal to sport. A lot of people steer away from it because it's difficult. It's difficult because it works. You know, training to change your body composition, to change your fitness, you need that overload principle. And for me, it's a game changer for a lot of sports, particularly MMA, particularly rugby, if done correctly. And it has to be person specific and position specific. So I would change the distance, I would change the time of attention, and I would change the weight for certain athletes. But it's a huge adjunct, and I became a bit fanatical about it. There's a gym company called Black Box. And
yeah.
So many years ago, I seen this sled online, and I reached out to the guy. I said, I'd like to buy this sled off you, and he goes, oh shit. He goes, I haven't built it yet. I just put a picture of what I would like it to look like. I haven't built it yet. So he says, I'll build it for you.
They're based in Northern Ireland.
Northern Ireland, yeah. And so Gregory Bradley, his name is. So he built it. And that was Gregory Bradley, Black Box, first ever piece of equipment they ever sold.
No way.
Yeah. And that was me buying something that wasn't even bought yet, you know. And then I built this sled. It's called a plough. So a plough is a four-skidded sled. And the issue was I was training Clontarf Rugby Club at the time. When you push a sled, sometimes the front skid, if you're on the grass, can get stuck in. And then people have to spin it around. Now, if you're hot and sweaty and there's a group of guys getting it, sometimes that spin around can hit a shin or do something. So for me, by having a four-skidded sled and a low handle in the middle, it meant I never needed to spin it around. And then I would put attachments at either side. So it increased health and safety, and it was a bit of a brought down the transition time. So he made one of those for me. But strongman training, if done correctly and you understand what to do, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Like I have a course online on strongman training, and I'm over 100 exercises on a sled. I have to move on.
100?
100. So from a rehab...
Push, pull.
Oh no, backward sled drag, bear drag, single leg drag, you know, Hitler walks, pull throughs, face pulls, hip thrust. It's huge and it's horrible. Yeah. It's horrible. One of the worst things you can do with a sled, if you really want to improve your lactic acid tolerance, is a lap of a football pitch with 20 kilos on it. And it depends on the surface, but it's for fitness, it's phenomenal, particularly for team sports.
So that's kind of a because I could ask you about hypertrophy training or deadlift training or whatever like that, and it's different for everybody. That's kind of something that the vast majority of people could implement and see results from, as opposed to, as I said, these specific exercises. I'm laughing when you mentioned Chris Fields, that he might not remember this. We did a few sessions up with him in SPG in Swords and Swords Main Street, and he was, I'm not a fucking fighter, but I've done a lot of different types of that kind of training, and he was demonstrating for the lads a kick, and I was holding the pads, and he kicked, and I slagged him. I said, come on, I didn't know the fella at all. I didn't know what was going on. And he turned around and looked at me, and then he kicked me properly. And I think for probably 4 or 5 months after that, I felt like I'd snapped my forearms in half.
He's deceiving, man.
Oh my God.
But he's long and lanky, and sometimes when people are long and lanky, their muscle mass doesn't show. You know, you can't really see how strong they are. But he's a nasty guy. I rolled with him many times, and everything is just like, even like moving your hand over your face to get a cross face. He would rub his.
There's a rake in there.
And then he'd poke in the arm, and then and one time he got me in a body triangle, and I got sick in my mouth, right, in my mouth. And he just looked at me, swallow it, and then he would do a submission, then not put it on, then do another one, and his coach partner Tom King. He would do a thing like knee on belly, and he's really known for it. But this is going to sound disgusting, and I don't mean to. I've never had a man enter me before. But what he did was he put his knee on my belly, and I felt like I went right through my back. And he just stayed there, and he changed side, and he spin around, and it was just But look, I slagged them off, but they're phenomenal coaches. The club is very good, and the atmosphere in the club is phenomenal. And I joke, they wouldn't do that to other people. That's just to me. That's not the way
they wouldn't do that to other people. Tom is the kind of grappling expert.
Yeah.
I did the same fucking. I didn't learn my lesson. The same thing to him. And I was 6'3". That guy player, Jack the lad here.
Yeah.
And Tom demonstrated. I can't remember what it was to the lads, and I lifted him up, being a dope.
Yeah.
And then he gave me the same look out of the corner of his, and within 2 seconds, I don't know what the lads are laughing because I know where I was. I was on the floor, I was blacked out, a drill coming out. Someone just said, tap. I was like, what am I tap? I don't know, I'm half asleep, and he had put me in some sort of sleeper hold on the floor. I don't know how it happened, but I have to qualify this. 2 absolute gentlemen.
Yeah, great guys.
Gentlemen. There was no kind of, we're better than you at this.
Yeah.
Right, lads, we're going to start this at the start. So it was really excellent.
This is the thing. Like, if me and you were to go to the gym with Tom and Chris, we'd outlift them. No problem. We'd smash them in the gym. So that's their field, and then that's why that's the whole thing about jiu-jitsu is that you're. It's not about strength.
Yeah.
It's about technique, and it's about levers and leverage and angles and so on. And if you know them correctly, you can do them. But they are phenomenal at what they do for sure.
But I think that's the point, isn't it? Again, of everything, why?
Yeah.
Why do you want to go and deadlift 300 kilos?
Yeah.
Why? Is it going to be any good for what you're trying to do, or do you just need that number to put up on your Instagram for the next? This is kind of sounds cliched and preachy, but when you get it, when it clicks, you're like, oh yeah. And I've seen, and I won't mention any names, but guys I would have played with who played at high level. You know, it's Gaelic football, but who played at really high levels. When I noticed them change their training patterns because they were in with an elite training team, and all of a sudden it wasn't about go in here and bench this and lift that. It was all about applicable movements, and it was much less weight but done in completely different ways. And within weeks, animals, absolute animals, because they just changed. Though, why am I doing this? Why am I just in here with a bunch of me heads trying to? None of us are weightlifters. Yeah. I'll put another 5 kilos in the back. Bunch of GAR players.
There's always people stronger. There's always more.
Yeah.
But this is what I ask people when you go to the gym. And again, I'm not slagging people off because I do cane people in the gym. But going to the gym, you should feel better leaving.
Yeah.
You should feel like you're enhancing your body. Like I have guys that are walking around in chronic pain because of deadlifting. I have guys in chronic pain because of powerlifting and CrossFitting because they're wearing their body down. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, that car, we've only got one car. You're rallying it. You're doing donuts. You're all over it. You're off-roading it. And then think you're going to be okay when you get back on it. You won't. You can really damage yourself. And again, Eric Serrano, a good friend of mine, Louis Simmons, he's a big powerlifter over in Ohio. 2 artificial shoulders. A lot of these guys have hip replacements, the knee replacements. Like narrowing down and increasing load and shortening the range of motion over time will wear in your body. Yes, it will get you to your 1,000-pound squat or whatever it may be, but is that what you want for your body moving forward?
Yeah.
So I think people, I know it comes with age, but going to the gym, you should stimulate yourself, challenge yourself, improving something, maybe improve your fitness or muscle mass, but you shouldn't be leaving in bits,
Yeah, look at the great Ronnie Coleman.
It's sad to see,
It's very sad to see. And you look at the befores and afters, and don't get me wrong, unbelievable what the man did. Incredible.
Yeah.
But is that what you want?
Yeah.
Like, he wanted that goal and he achieved the goal. Amazing. But do you want that? Are you just doing this because it's the thing? It's the thing to do, and we all need to do that. So I think it's a very good point. And just to round up this whole kind of train smart, train hard thing, people kind of fall into one camp or the other, and it's a nice middle ground that you kind of need because the train hard, like exactly like that. Go in, cane myself, whatever it takes, cane myself, everything. And there's no real understanding of where they're going. And then there's can be some people that really far gone into the train smart. They don't train hard enough.
Yeah.
And I see that can be a problem now sometimes as well. And they're the people that kind of float around and say, "Oh no, guys, you don't need to push yourself. 2 reps and go home."
Oh yeah.
Well,
and
there's a middle ground here.
Yeah, there is, and I see people not going to failure and saying, "No, you don't need to go to failure." Taking steroids, you don't need to go to failure. A colleague of mine, Luke Lehman, he worked with an education company he worked for a long time, and he has these 2 things. And I like how we've been saying a very similar thing, but he's put a nice name on it. He called it least mode and beast mode. I actually think he's trademarked it now at this point.
Least mode and beast mode.
Least mode and beast mode. So what happens is a lot of people go into the gym and cane themselves. And in my opinion, and in his opinion, they're not fit enough to do that.
Okay.
So they're not balanced, they're not mobile enough, they're not fit enough to withstand that level of stress and the right amount of recovery. So what he will do in a lot of his guys is a 6 to 12 week preparatory phase of least mode, so they can then train hard. And then what you should do is, and this goes with all training, has been shown, that you cycle in and out of competition. You cycle in about a hard training. So maybe it's a month of hard training, a month of more lower volume, corrective, balance and stuff, then a month of hard training. And that undulation or that periodization model, or what we call accumulation intensification phases, allows you to progressively increase your training. But you can't go in and smash it every single day. It will wear your body down. And then those injuries will stagnate your progress. will retard your growth, and then over time it was going to stop you being in the gym altogether. So those guys out there being a bit airy-fairy, not pushing themselves hard, they're not getting the results as much. The guys going in and caning themselves, they're bound to crash at some point in time. So I think it's a happy medium of cycling and waving through it. That's why Chura Bompa has this periodization model. It can't always be linear, but we prefer undulating. So every month we cycle things.
Yeah. It comes back to that word that you absolutely hate, balance. But it is, it's a happy medium. It's usually, and you with everything, with emotions and politics and strength and nutrition, everything, it's usually somewhere in the middle is the answer. It's rarely an extreme. And I know we've been on to go into this, we talked about before, extreme diets and extreme anything. There's a bit of a religious kind of thing to that. It's not necessarily the best thing for you. Look, Owen, a huge amount of, I know we could do another 20 hours probably, but a huge amount of information in that. And to kind of, not to wrap it all up, but to bring it down again, we've touched on how this can be applicable to people, but the start is to just sit down and think about it. Where do I want to go? You use the sat nav. It's an excellent metaphor. People might think that's oversimplified. That is the point.
Yeah.
You need to know where you're going, and you need to know why you want to go there, and you need to know where you are now. And if you have those things, all of a sudden, all of this information you can start to apply. You've got your foundations. You don't need to know about all these different methods and training because you can start to build that for yourself, or you can talk to people who know about it, and it makes a lot more sense to you when you've taken a few minutes to go, I'm here and I need to go there. And that applies to the 20-year-old taking steroids, wants to be a big bodybuilder. Why? It applies to I won't say Mary, it applies to Laura, who's in her 60s, who just wants to be fit and healthy and wants to extend her life and live another 40 years. It's take the 5 minutes, listen to Owen Lacey, listen to the Primal podcast, and but figure out your why and where you're going. It's fair enough to kind of wrap it up like that.
Perfect
Yeah,
stuff.
Owen, thank you so much.
No problem.
I'm not even going to say this because we're definitely going to have you back on again if you'll do me the favour to come back over.
I'll see it in 2022, is it? Yeah.
Is it 2022? Yeah. But if, like, I know you do a lot of courses. I know you do some one-to-one stuff. I know there's a lot of resources out there for people. And we did mention last time, but it's always helpful if there's someone listening to this and they want to know, okay, that sounds really interesting. I can't do it by myself. What's a good place to start? Is it to kind of follow? You're on social media now. Welcome.
Welcome
to the world.
I turned 40 and decided to go onto social media. And the reason being is during the first lockdown, I was the controllables. What can you control?
Yeah.
So I decided that I couldn't go off traveling and teaching like I used to do all the time. So I decided to set up the online education.
It's amazing, by the way.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed. And what we do is social media is just to complement that, because the people want to reach out in different ways. Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. It's Owen Lacey Education. The website is oweneducation.com. So it's fairly straightforward. But what I say to people is out there, it doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be just seek help. And don't take huge chunks. Take small things, implement them, and then over time. But if you want to get somewhere, the people on the right of you or on the left of you should be supporting you. So align yourself with a professional if you need that. Like, we're talking about genes, we're talking about blood tests, we're talking about advanced nutrition. It doesn't have to be that way. Those two questions, what can I stop doing? What can I start doing? Very straightforward. Now, every week I review my progress. What did I do well? What did I not do well? Those 5 things for your health bank account: sleep, macronutrients, micronutrients, water, air, simple things. And once you are on the road, it's easy to get going. It's easy to get someone up and walking for 20 minutes every morning. And then every second morning they run. And every third morning they go to the gym or whatever it is. But start. Yeah. Start today, start now, invest in you, invest in your family, invest in your health, whether your kids, your grandkids. But now's the time to do it. Don't wait till something starts falling off or, your body starts to tell you that there's some serious issues going on. Don't get too advanced, but just start and reach out to a coach. If the coach, like the same way if you went to a restaurant and the service wasn't good, you weren't getting the meal you wanted, you'll go to somewhere else. Don't feel obliged. And I see clients staying with trainers because they're friends. No. I have friends. None of them pay me. So you're going there for service and align yourself with people that are open-minded. You've had a lot of guys that are coaches and trainers, and they all refer people. Yeah. And I refer people all the time because it's not about me, it's about the client. And this is the time where people out there, particularly the Irish females that I give a hard time to, because you don't look after yourselves. You put everybody else first, you come last, and it's not good enough. You need to focus on yourself. Having kids, working, all the things that women do, they don't give themselves the time to recover and give them the nutritional and emotional support that they need. So reach out to somebody and invest in your health now, and then reap the rewards. Like when you're feeling good, everything is better.
Literally. Yeah. Absolutely everything. We'll just check me little 2 points here. The best topics, I think we covered 2 amazing topics there.
Right.
And I failed on the other one, trying not to feel stupid sitting in front of Owen Lacey. Always make me feel like an absolute monkey. But Owen, as always, really, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for giving us all that
valuable, free information.
Brilliant stuff.
And I look forward to chatting to you soon.
Okay, 2022. See you next year.
2022,
Yeah.
here we go.
Are we all vaccinated or will I? I don't know.
Oh, jeez.
That's the next talk.
Pause.
Pause.
Shit.
Quick. Don't ruin it.
And there you have it, like the Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, and that weird uncle who lives in India, the yearly appearance of the amazing Owen Lacey on the Primal Podcast. Thank you, Owen. Jokes aside, starting with Owen last year and followed since by so many incredible and talented minds, coaches, experts and guides, I've been really, really lucky to be able to sit and chat to people who have genuinely enriched my life, who've taught me how to build better habits and have given me the tools to create the life that I want. And it's been a genuine pleasure to be able to share these conversations with you, the listener. And there is plenty more where that came from. If you enjoyed this episode, let's do something a little different this time. Forget liking and subscribing and rating this week. If you just share the link to this episode with one person, I guarantee you'll be adding value to their life. People like Owen offer real, concrete knowledge on how to take control of the factors in life that we so often feel are out of our hands. And I don't know about you, but when I listen to podcasts like the one we just finished, I feel inspired, educated, informed, and most importantly, empowered to be able to make my life better. And who doesn't want that? So share the link or Instagram post or Owen's information with someone you care about and help empower them too. If you'd like any more information, you can get in touch with me on Instagram or Facebook at PrimalPro, PRYMALPRO. You can catch Owen at Owen Lacey Education. And you can see all the links and information related to this episode over at www.primal.ie/Owen Lacey Health. And P.S. I promise to try and get Owen back on before 2022, so don't worry. See you in the next episode.